Welcome back, everyone. Today we have a juicy one that's going to keep you on the edge of your seat. Meet Zhan Ying, a fresh face in the corporate world trying her absolute best to survive the shark-infested waters of social media marketing. She is currently facing her biggest nightmare, a high-stakes meeting where every single mistake feels like a total death sentence. Her coworker, Wang Lil, is currently getting absolutely roasted for a messy presentation, making everyone in the room want to vanish into the floorboards out of pure secondhand embarrassment. Zhan Ying clenches her jaw and stares down at her notebook, bracing herself for the impact as her own flawed work plan is brought up next. Okay? Her boss asks, her voice slicing through the heavy silence like a cold, sharp blade. This is Zhou Yuanyou, the Ice Queen, the ultimate workaholic, and the woman who holds Zhan Ying's entire career in her perfectly manicured hands. Zhan Ying's heart hammers against her ribs, certain that her time at this company is coming to a swift and brutal end. Remember to give me some minutes of the meeting after you leave work, the boss says, turning away with a graceful flick of her silver hair. Zhan Ying blinks in total shock, her mind racing as she tries to process why she wasn't just fired on the spot. As the room finally clears, she can breathe again, but the lingering, intense gaze of her boss has left her head spinning in circles. Suddenly, a cold can of soda is slammed onto her desk, startling her out of her anxious daze. It's Yuanyou again, looming over her with an expression that is completely impossible to read. Last time I saw you, you were drinking this. I bought it, by the way, the boss murmurs, her voice surprisingly soft as she offers the small peace offering. Zhan Ying fumbles with the can, her fingers brushing against the boss's cool skin for a split second, sending a jolt of pure electricity through her entire body. Lil stares with her jaw on the floor, unable to believe that the office tyrant just performed an act of genuine, unprompted kindness. You were saying? Zhan Ying mutters, her face heating up as she tries to act like her heart isn't doing frantic backflips. Squeeze. The can groans under Zhan Ying's tightening grip as her friend leans in with a look of pure, unadulterated dread. Back at her desk, Zhan Ying finds it impossible to focus on anything but that drink and the way Yuanyou looked at her with those piercing eyes. She dives into the deep, dark depths of the internet, searching for any logical explanation for this sudden and terrifying change in behavior. That's when she finds it. The dreaded straight girl operation, a viral warning to those who fall for the charms of women who are just being friendly. She leans back in her chair, her head throbbing as she realizes she might be walking right into a devastating emotional minefield. Her friend explains this NXJ, the heterosexual woman trap where a girl builds intimacy only to lead you to a dead end. It creates a beautiful, shimmering illusion that makes you feel like you are finally the most special person in her world. But as you reach out to grab that fleeting happiness, the floor beneath your feet begins to crack and give way. You don't even realize you're sinking until the cold, dark water of reality closes over your head and pulls you under. You need to be careful. The warning echoes in her mind, a stark and chilling reminder to keep her guard up at all costs. But then, a notification lights up her screen, a direct message from the Ice Queen herself, inviting her to dinner after work. Zhan Ying's eyes nearly pop out of her head. A formal dinner invitation is basically a confession in the corporate world, right? She arrives at a restaurant so fancy it makes her feel like a total fish out of water, the city lights twinkling through the massive windows behind them. Her hands tremble as she sits across from her boss, wondering if this is the exact moment her entire life is about to change forever. The atmosphere is heavy with unspoken words as the waiter approaches, only adding to the suffocating romantic tension. Yuanyou looks away, a faint, rare blush dusting her cheeks as she prepares to say what's on her mind. Zhan Ying closes her eyes and clenches her hands over her heart, praying to any god that will listen that this isn't just a cruel joke. I've been wanting to ask you something for a long time. Yuanyou begins, her emerald eyes locking onto Zhan Ying's with an intensity that is almost unbearable. Zhan Ying's breath hitches in her throat, her heart practically leaping out of her chest as she waits for the words, I love you. Do you have a cat? The boss asks, her intense gaze suddenly feeling very misplaced in this romantic setting. And just like that, the beautiful bubble bursts, leaving Zhan Ying wondering if she's just been catfished by a literal cat lover. What do you guys think? Is the boss just awkward or is the trap already set? Let me know in the comments. The air in the room stills as Ms. Zhao leans forward, her gaze piercing yet unreadable. Do you own a cat? She asks, the question hanging between them like a sudden, unexpected challenge. Zhan Ying looks up, her face a mask of pure, comical bewilderment as she repeats the word under her breath, her fingers twitching nervously. Ms. Zhao settles back against a backdrop of lush, blooming roses, her voice softening as she prepares to weave a tale of her own recent misfortune. Zhan Ying's eyes instantly ignite with a sparkling, golden light, the mere mention of feline companions sending her heart into a frantic flutter of excitement. But just as quickly as the joy arrived, a wave of crushing realization washes over her, leaving her looking utterly dazed and confused. Nearby, a sleek black cat sits atop a plush cushion, its tail wagging with a rhythmic, hypnotic grace that suggests it knows exactly how much trouble it's causing. The little creature lets out a bright, cheerful meow, its vibrant green eyes wide and full of an almost supernatural mischief. Ms. Zhou gestures toward the kitchen, suggesting they sit and discuss the mysterious guest while she pours a much-needed glass of water. Zhan Ying can't help herself. She crouches down on the rug, her hands reaching out tentatively as the feisty kitten begins to playfully bat at her fingers. Ah! She gasps, a mix of shock and delight crossing her features as the tiny hunter suddenly lunges for a surprise attack. Looking up at her elegant host with a sudden surge of curiosity, Zhan Ying asks the question that's been burning in her mind. How did you even know about the cat? Ms. Zhou pauses, a small bead of sweat forming on her brow as she struggles to find a dignified way to explain the chaos of the last few days. A faint, bittersweet smile touches her lips, her eyes softening with a hidden warmth as she looks at the girl before her. Outside, the night sky is a deep, velvet blue, dotted with shimmering stars that watch over the city in silence. We journey back a few days to a quiet street corner, where the neon glow of a convenience store hums against the shadows of the night. Ms. Zhu had just stepped out into the cool air, her hands busy unwrapping a simple sandwich for a late-night dinner. Suddenly, a persistent, lonely meow echoed from the darkness, and she felt a soft weight rubbing against her ankles. She looked down to find a tiny, scruffy stray staring up at her, its eyes reflecting the streetlights with a desperate, hungry plea. Her heart, usually so guarded, melted instantly as she knelt on the cold cobblestones to offer the creature a piece of her meal. The kitten began to eat with a frantic nom-nom sound, its small body shivering with relief in the presence of its savior. When Ms. Zhou finally turned to leave, the cat looked up, its mind clearly made up about who its new owner was going to be. She tried to walk away, but the sound of tiny paws followed her every step, trailing her all the way to the glowing buttons of the elevator. The doors chimed open, and before she could even protest, the black bird darted inside, claiming the space as its own. Back in the apartment, Ms. Zhou collapsed onto the sofa in total exhaustion, only to watch the intruder leap onto the cushions with the confidence of a king. She stared at the tiny, purring ball of fur in absolute disbelief, realizing her peaceful, solitary life had just been hijacked. "Why are you even here?" She cried out to the ceiling, her only answer being a defiant meow that echoed through the high-rise. The next morning, the sun rises harshly over the trees, signaling the start of another grueling day at the office. The atmosphere in the workplace is suffocatingly tense as Ms. Zhou arrives, looking like a walking storm cloud of pure sleep deprivation. She pinches the bridge of her nose, her eyes bloodshot and her temper fraying as the phantom sounds of meowing continue to ring in her ears. "I didn't get a single wink of sleep because of that cat," she mutters, slamming her coffee mug onto the desk with a thud that makes everyone jump. Her subordinates tremble, offering terrified mornings, while trying to blend to the furniture to avoid her icy, exhausted glare. Zhan Ying practically leaps out of her skin, her face flushing a deep, embarrassed red as she stammered out a frantic apology. She buries her nose in her work, her heart hammering against her ribs while she senses Ms. Zhou looming behind her like a silent, judging predator. As Ms. Zhou turns away with a weary sigh, Zhan Ying's friend leans in, whispering about how the boss looks like she's ready to fire someone just for breathing too loudly. Ms. Zhou gestures toward the towering cabinet, her voice soft as she admits that while she's never raised a pet before, she spent the last 2 days desperately researching everything a new kitten might need. Zhan Ying stares in utter silence, her eyes widening as she realizes that her sophisticated boss might have taken the internet's advice a little too literally. Before them stands a literal fortress of pet supplies, glowing with an expensive aura that makes Zhan Ying wonder if they're raising a cat or a small prince. Zhan Ying can't help but laugh at the absurdity, pointing out that 10 bottles of shampoo, 3 litter boxes, and a mountain of food might just a tad excessive for one tiny stray. She gently picks up a tin, explaining that certain treats like milk cakes aren't even suitable for kittens who aren't old enough yet. As Zhan Ying rambles on with expert advice, she doesn't notice the way Ms. Zhou is looking at her gaze softening with a warmth that could melt the coldest winter. Suddenly catching herself, Zhan Ying's face flushes a deep crimson as she stammers an apology, terrified that she's overstepped her bounds by lecturing her boss. But Ms. Zhou just smiles, her voice a soothing melody as she tells the younger girl that she doesn't mind at all. In fact, she leans in slightly, her eyes shimmering with a radiant light as she confesses how wonderful it feels to finally have Zhan Ying here in her private home. Zhan Ying's heart practically performs a victory in her chest, her internal monologue screaming with joy at the unexpected compliment. Meanwhile, the little black cat remains blissfully unaware of the romantic tension, focusing entirely on its own grooming routine. Ms. Zhou reaches out to stroke the kitten's fur, noting that since the clinics are all closed for the night, they should at least try to get the little guy cleaned up themselves. Zhan Ying's breath hitches at the thought of a joint bath session, but she quickly agrees, even as she worries about the logistics of washing a literal ball of claws. Ms. Zhou explains that for their own safety, they'll need to trim those tiny daggers before the water starts running. She demonstrates the technique, gently pressing on a velvet paw to reveal the sharp, translucent needle hidden within. Zhan Ying carefully hands the kitten over, her fingers brushing against Ms. Zhou's hand for a lingering second that sends a jolt of electricity through her arm. Ms. Zhou focuses intensely on the task, her brow furrowed in concentration as she tries to be as gentle as possible. Looking at her boss from this close, Zhan Ying is struck by how incredibly kind and warm Ms. Zhou seems in this domestic light. She finds herself wishing, just for a fleeting second, that she could trade places with the cat just to feel those gentle hands on her. But the kitten has other plans, its eyes suddenly flashing with a chaotic, fiery energy as it decides it has had quite enough of this pedicure. Zhan Ying's eyes narrow as she realizes the cat is looking at her with what can only be described as pure, unadulterated spite. The little beast begins to thrash, letting out a dramatic yowl that echoes through the room as it struggles against Ms. Zhou's hold. Ms. Zhou tries to soothe the creature, her voice a gentle hush as she pets its head, trying to coax it into behaving. The cat goes still, but it shoots Zhan Ying a smug, mocking look that says, "She likes me better than you." Zhan Ying is practically vibrating with indignation, her internal rivalry with a 4-pound animal reaching a boiling point. She grits her teeth, her face darkening with a hilarious shadow of jealousy, as she realizes she's being outmaneuvered by a stray. Fine, she thinks, let's just get to the bath. As the kitten begins to shiver at the sound of the splashing water, Zhan Ying rolls up her sleeves and gets to work. Determined to scrub the attitude right off this little monster, she begins to rub the soap into the dark fur. But as the bubbles multiply, something incredibly strange starts to happen. Both girls freeze in shock as the black fur begins to wash away, revealing a completely different color underneath. As the dye fades and the water runs dark, they stare in total disbelief at the bright orange cat sitting in the tub, realizing the black stray was a fraud all along. Xiaozhan holds up the soggy creature, her eyes widening as she realizes the black cat was just covered in a layer of grime that's now washing away in the tub. She presses her hand firmly against the cat's head to keep it steady, though the feline looks far from pleased with this sudden, soapy spa day. It was originally an orange cat, she exclaims, her voice echoing with a mix of shock and amusement as the true colors are revealed. The two of them work together in the cramped space, scrubbing away the remains of the street life from the cat's fur, while Ms. Zhou watches the process with a soft, curious expression. Xiaozhan continues to lather up the soap, explaining that the poor thing must have been wandering outside for far too long, turning its vibrant orange coat into a muddy, dark mess. But just as the suds reach a peak, the cat decides it has had quite enough of this watery torture, its muscles tensing for a desperate, splashing escape. "Ah, Ms. Zhao, could you come over and hold it down for me?" Xiaozhan shouts, her voice strained as she struggles with the slippery, wriggling beast. Ms. Zhao flinches, her eyes wide with a sudden, adorable panic as she stammers out, "Ah? Hold where?" Xiaozhan doesn't have time for hesitation or manners, frantically gesturing toward the cat's midsection, and crying out that any place she can grab is fine. Ms. Zhou gingerly reaches out, her hands hovering uncertainly over the wet fur as she asks exactly how she's supposed to maintain a grip on such a frantic creature. "Just put your hand here. Don't be afraid," Xiaozhan urges, her own hands already buried deep in the soapy orange fluff to guide her friend. The two girls lean in close, their shoulders brushing and their breaths mingling as they try to pin the cat down together. With a final, piercing meow, the orange terror manages to break free, its claws scrambling for purchase as it launches itself out of their reach. The sudden force sends both girls reeling, and in the chaotic blur of splashing water and sliding feet, they go tumbling backward onto the slick tiles. The world seems to slow down as they hit the floor, and Xiaozhan finds herself pinned beneath Ms. Zhou, her heart hammering against her ribs as she looks up into those piercing, beautiful eyes. Xiaozhan's breath hitches as she tries to scramble away, her face flushing a deep, unmistakable crimson as she stammers out that she's perfectly fine. She tries to play it off with a nervous, high-pitched laugh, claiming the heat in her face is simply because they've been trapped in the steamy bathroom for way too long. Meanwhile, the culprit of all this drama sits perched triumphantly on the toilet, grooming itself as if it hadn't just caused a romantic catastrophe. Ms. Zhou doesn't say a word about the tension, her gaze lingering on Xiaozhan's face before she gently places a soft, dry towel over the girl's damp head. Xiaozhan tries to protest, her voice small and trembling as she insists she can dry herself. But Ms. Zhou's touch is firm yet impossibly tender. "Sit down," Ms. Zhao whispers, her voice a low, melodic command that makes Xiaozhan's knees feel like absolute jelly. She pulls the girl into a gentle trap, the yellow towel acting as a cozy barrier between them and the rest of the world as she begins to dry her hair. Ms. Zhao lets out a soft, airy laugh, admitting that she never expected washing a simple cat could lead to such an exhausting and messy ordeal. Xiaozhan looks up from beneath the folds of the towel, her eyes shimmering with a mix of embarrassment and a growing, undeniable heat. The bathroom is thick with a heavy mist, a hazy veil that makes every breath feel intimate and every heartbeat sound like a drum. In the silence, the scent of cat shampoo lingers on Xiaozhan's skin, a sweet and floral aroma that seems to intoxicate Ms. Zhao as she leans in closer. To Ms. Zhu, the girl sitting before her is the same professional she sees in the office every day. Yet in this moment, everything feels fundamentally different. She smiles down at the dark-haired girl, teasingly noting that with the towel draped over her head, she looks just like a tiny, ruffled kitten. Xiaozhan's brain completely short-circuits at the compliment, her eyes turning into wide saucers as she wonders if her heart is about to explode. She wants to scream, to tell Ms. Zhao to stop being so charmingly perfect, but the words die in her throat as she stares at her friend. Ms. Zhou gently pulls back, her eyes softening as she notices that Xiaozhan's hair is finally starting to dry under her careful hands. With a playful wink and a heart-stopping smile, She tells the girl it's time to go and get a change of clothes before the chill sets in. The air in the bedroom feels heavy with an unspoken tension as Xiao Zhan hangs her head, apologizing for the mess they've ended up in after asking for Ms. Zhu's help. Ms. Zhu doesn't seem to mind at all, casually browsing through her closet to find something dry while Xiao Zhan insists she's perfectly fine as she is. I just bought this t-shirt, hurry up and change, Ms. Zhao commands, thrusting a dark garment into Xiao Zhan's trembling hands. Xiao Zhan looks up, her heart racing as Ms. Zhu leans in close, her voice a soft, dangerous velvet as she warns her not to catch a cold. But the panic sets in instantly. How on earth is she supposed to strip down and change with her boss standing right there in the same room? Before she can even process the situation, Ms. Zhu begins to nonchalantly unbutton her own shirt, the fabric sliding away to reveal a glimpse of lace. Xiao Zhan's brain short-circuits into a chibi-sized explosion of pure embarrassment as she screams, "Why are you changing like this?" Terrified of seeing more than her heart can handle, Xiao Zhan tries to bolt for the door, but Ms. Zhao's hand snaps out, grabbing her shoulder with surprising strength. "We're both girls, aren't we?" Ms. Zhao points out with a playful, almost predatory glint in her eyes, making Xiao Zhan's knees go weak. She turns her head slightly, peering over her shoulder with a gaze that feels like it's stripping Xiao Zhan's secrets bare, asking what exactly she's so afraid of. The internal chaos reaches a fever pitch as Xiao Zhan remains frozen, her face burning a bright crimson while Ms. Zhao wonders why she hasn't started changing yet. "Can I just go home and change there?" She squeaks out, but Ms. Zhou shuts her down instantly, insisting she'll get sick if she leaves in those damp clothes. It's official. Xiao Zhan feels like she's being bullied by this woman's overwhelming confidence, and Ms. Zhou seems to be enjoying every second of her subordinate's suffering, hiding behind the black t-shirt like it's a shield. Xiao Zhan realizes there's no escape from this beautiful, teasing trap. "Get a hold of yourself," she screams internally, trying to find the courage to just get it over with while her pulse thunders in her ears. Just as she begins to move, Ms. Zhou reaches out and playfully pokes her waist, causing Xiao Zhan to jump and yelp in shock. Ms. Zhou leans in even closer, her eyes dancing with mischief as she asks a question that makes Xiao Zhan want to evaporate. "Did your underwear get wet too?" Somehow, she survives the ordeal and finally makes it back to the safety of her own apartment, collapsing onto the sofa in a heap of pure exhaustion. Her loyal companion, Dragonfruit, greets her with a confused meow as Xiao Zhan reaches out for the only comfort she has left. The little cat stares up at her with wide, judgmental eyes, wondering what on earth has happened to its usually composed owner. "Do you know how much I had to suffer tonight because of her?" She wails, burying her face into the cat's soft fur as she vents her romantic frustrations. Just as she begins to settle down, a sudden ding-dong echoes through the quiet apartment, making her heart skip a beat. She freezes in place, her eyes wide with suspicion as she wonders who could possibly be visiting at this hour. A cold shiver runs down her spine as the doorbell rings again, the sound cutting through her lingering thoughts of Ms. Zhu. To her absolute shock, Ms. Zhu is standing right there at the door, looking stunningly refreshed and holding an orange cat of her own. Xiao Zhan reflexively pulls her own cat closer, her mind racing to understand why her boss has suddenly tracked her down at home. She clutches Dragonfruit like a lifeline, her face flushing all over again as she stares at the woman who has been haunting her thoughts all night. As she falls back onto the cushions, she can't help but feel completely overwhelmed by the persistent presence of the woman who seems determined to stay in her life. The stars twinkled coldly over the silent city as the world slept. Suddenly, a phone screen pierced the darkness, lighting up at 3 in the morning. A trembling hand fumbled through the sheets to silence the persistent, jarring vibration. Zhan Ying bolted upright, staring in disbelief at an incoming video call from Zhan Zhan. She rubbed her sleepy eyes, squinting at the bright display while her mind raced. But the screen flickered, revealing Ms. Zhu's face looming like a beautiful, terrifying ghost. Zhan Ying let out a strangled shriek, hurling her device across the bed in pure panic. Later that day, a simple payment code appeared on a screen during a much-needed outing. Zhan Ying walked with her friend Wang Liu, trying to process the bizarre late-night encounter. "Yeah, the whole thing was definitely weird," Liu remarked while they shared snacks on the street. Zhan Ying's eyes widened as she realized the implications of her own behavior. "I'm not interested in you like that," she barked at her friend, her face flushing a deep crimson. Liu leaned in with a serious expression, questioning if Ms. Zhou was even straight. They debated whether a straight woman would ever act so suggestively toward another girl. Liu recalled the way Ms. Zhou had poked her waist and sent those private photos. If she's straight, she wouldn't have had that kind of reaction, Liu pointed out logically. Zhan Ying's heart hammered against her ribs as a heavy, romantic tension filled the air. "You're so dead. Stop talking," Zhan Ying yelled, her voice cracking with embarrassment. Liu took off running through the station with Zhan Ying hot on her heels in a frantic chase. Zhan Ying rounded a corner at full speed, completely unable to stop her momentum. Bang! She slammed right into a firm chest, a slender hand reaching out to steady her head. She looked up, gasping as she met Ms. Zhu's piercing, icy gaze. "Ms. Zhao, I'm so sorry," she stammered, while Liu watched the drama unfold from a distance. Ms. Zhao told her to be careful and avoid running inside the building. Her expression remained unreadable, maintaining her terrifyingly professional office persona. Zhan Ying watched her walk away, feeling a sudden, sharp pang of regret in her chest. She vividly remembered the Ms. Zhu from yesterday, the one who laughed so freely and warmly. That version of the woman felt like a fleeting, beautiful beautiful dream that was slipping away. She sighed softly, already missing the gentle warmth of that brief, intimate connection. Ms. Zhou stood silently for a moment, her eyes reflecting hidden, swirling depths of emotion. She waited by the elevator, her posture rigid and her face masked in professional indifference. Deep down, she wondered why the girl had fled before she could even finish her sentence. Ms. Zhou's gaze lingers, her eyes searching for an answer that remains unspoken. The weight of the morning's awkwardness presses down on the young woman, making it impossible to meet that piercing stare. Back at her desk, she tries to lose herself in work until a colleague asks for the latest meeting notes. Her heart jumps as she realizes she needs a quick exit before the silver-haired beauty approaches again. "Follow me to the toilet," she cries, desperately grabbing her blonde friend to use as a human shield. Her friend isn't having it, shouting back that if she needs to go, she can go by herself. Panic flares in her eyes as she breaks into a frantic, hurried run. Ms. Zhou watches with a confused tilt of her head as the two girls vanish down the hall in a chaotic blur. Alone with her thoughts, Ms. Zhou takes a slow, contemplative breath while gripping her coffee. Inside the restroom, the mundane sound of splashing water offers a brief moment of peace for the staff. She exhales a breath she didn't know she was holding, thinking she finally escaped the suffocating tension. Her friend stands by, arms crossed and tapping her foot, demanding they hurry back to work. But the door swings open and a familiar voice freezes them both in place. Ms. Zhou stands there, a playful yet sharp glint in her eyes as she notes the coincidence of their meeting. In a desperate bid for freedom, the girl claims she's suddenly starving and tries to teleport behind her blonde companion. The blonde girl blocks her path, cold-heartedly telling her to wait downstairs while she finishes her documents. With a cheerful farewell, her only ally abandons her to the lion's den. She tries to bolt past, her movements a desperate whoosh of air, but a firm grip snatches the back of her shirt, stopping her dead in her tracks. "Caught you," Ms. Zhou whispers, lifting her like a kitten caught in a prank. The atmosphere turns heavy as Ms. Zhou demands to know why she's been avoided all day. "I wasn't," she squeaks, but the guilty look on her face betrays every word. Ms. Zhou begins a slow, methodical list of every snub and missed greeting since the sun rose. As she counts each offense on her fingers, the girl realizes there is no hiding from this woman's observation. The proximity is overwhelming and she finds herself drowning in the sheer beauty of Ms. Zhou's face. Ms. Zhou mentions the wet clothes and the cat from the night before, her voice dropping to a dangerous tone. Surrounded by an imaginary field of sunflowers, she asks with a dazzling smile if they can meet again. The invitation hits like a physical arrow to the heart, leaving the girl completely defenseless. They quickly scramble to find a time, settling on a night that works for both of them. The girl's eyes sparkle with a mix of terror and pure, unadulterated adoration. Ms. Zhou leans in dangerously close, her breath ghosting against the girl's skin as she asks what's on her mind. In the corner stall, a colleague trembles in shock, having overheard the scandalous question of whether Ms. Zhou likes girls. Zhou stands there, her silver hair shimmering under the harsh lights as she completely freezes at the unexpected, heart-stopping question. Xiao Zhan's soul practically leaves her body as she realizes what just slipped out of her mouth, her mind screaming for a giant stop button to rewind the last 10 seconds. Her heart does a frantic triple backflip as she clutches her chest, her face contorting in a mask of pure, unadulterated internal screaming. In her mind's eye, she sees a tiny, chaotic version of herself, aggressively kicking down the cabinet door of Zhou's secrets, wondering if she just committed social suicide. But then, the world stops spinning when Zhou calmly murmurs, "I would," leaving Xiao Zhan's jaw practically hitting the floor in shock. Zhao continues with a nonchalant shrug, claiming that girls are simply too cute for anyone to resist, while Xiao Zhan stares at her, wondering if she should be celebrating or panicking even harder. The air in the room suddenly turns heavy and electric as Zhou leans in, her gaze dropping to Xiao Zhan's lips as she asks, "Why do you ask?" Their faces are so close that Xiao Zhan can feel the warmth of Zhou's breath, her red eyes wide and trembling as the tension between them reaches a breaking point. "Xiao Zhan, are you scared of me?" Zhao whispers, her voice like velvet, sending a shiver straight down the younger girl's spine. Overwhelmed by the sheer proximity, Xiao Zhan attempts a clumsy, tactical backward retreat, her limbs moving like a broken marionette. Zhao blinks in utter confusion, her head tilting as she watches this bizarre display of panic-fueled parkour. Xiao Zhan keeps backing away, her entire body shaking like a leaf as she desperately tries to put some distance between her heart and the woman causing it to malfunction. She's so busy panicking that she completely forgets to check behind her, her eyes squeezing shut as she realizes she's run out of floor. With a sickeningly loud banshee, she slams headfirst into the wall, the impact so hard that cartoon stars might as well be circling her head. Zhou's cool exterior cracks instantly as she rushes forward, her voice laced with genuine panic as she cries, "Are you okay? Let me see." She reaches out, her slender fingers gently cupping Xiao Zhan's face to inspect the damage, her touch sending a different kind of jolt through the girl's system. Xiao Zhan looks up with big, watery eyes, tears pricking at the corners from the sharp sting of the bump on her head. Zhou's expression softens into something almost tender as she admits that being here with Xiao Zhan feels entirely different from their professional life at the company. She looks away for a moment, her long, elegant earrings swaying as she falls into a pensive, quiet mood. "I'm the kind of person who doesn't like to bring personal emotions to work," Zhou explains softly. But if that's bothering you, I'll try to adjust. She looks back, her gaze locking onto Xiaozhan's with an intensity that feels like a promise as she adds, "Just to you." Xiaozhan stands there, her heart fluttering like a trapped bird against the backdrop of imaginary cherry blossoms that seem to bloom in the wake of Zhu's words. Zhou clarifies that while their professional relationship is the priority, she already considers Xiaozhan to be a very dear friend. Xiaozhan can only nod frantically, her brain still sizzling from the "just to you" comment as she tries to process this new level of intimacy. A playful, almost mischievous glint enters Zhu's eyes as she raises a finger, telling her there is one last thing to settle. She leans in again, suggesting that meeting late at night is too tiring. So perhaps she could just come over to Xiaozhan's house this Saturday to see her cat. The heavy atmosphere finally breaks as they decide to leave the restroom behind, the promise of a lunch date hanging sweetly in the air. Downstairs in the cafeteria, Xiaozhan is a woman on a mission, her cheeks puffed out as she aggressively chews her food to hide her lingering embarrassment. They sit across from each other, the sunlight streaming through the window as they share a meal, looking for all the world like a perfectly matched pair. But while they're enjoying their delicious lunch, poor Leela is sitting outside on a bench, fuming with rage because she's been completely forgotten and her scallion pancakes are nowhere to be found. The sharp sound of a sudden sneeze cuts through the quiet focus of the meeting room, causing Ms. Zhou's marker to freeze mid-stroke against the whiteboard. Silver-haired Ms. Zhou turns her head with a look of mild surprise, her sharp gaze landing on Zhan Ying, who is currently burying her face in her hands in total embarrassment. Zhan Ying lets out a small, pathetic sniffle, her nose turning a faint shade of pink as her blonde colleague leans in to whisper a concerned question. "I think I caught a bit of a cold," Zhan Ying murmurs, her voice trembling slightly as she tries to suppress another shiver while clasping her hands together. Ms. Zhou doesn't miss a beat, immediately ordering a subordinate to raise the temperature of the air conditioning, completely ignoring Zhan Ying's frantic waving and protests that she'll be fine after a cup of tea. For a long, heart-stopping moment, Ms. Zhao simply stares at her, her emerald eyes unreadable as they scan Zhan Ying's shivering frame. Without a word of warning, the cool boss slips off her oversized tan blazer and drapes it heavily over Zhan Ying's shoulders, the sudden warmth catching the girl completely off guard. "All right." Continuing the meeting, Ms. Zhou announces with a stoic face, now standing in just a simple black t-shirt that highlights her effortless, cool girl aura. Zhan Ying sits there, practically drowning in the scent of her boss, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird as she blushes furiously. The rest of the meeting continues around them, with the wide boardroom feeling far more intimate and tense than it has any right to be. Even their colleagues can't help but notice the shift in the air, one of them wearing a knowing, secretive smile as if she's watching a romance drama unfold in real time. Zhan Ying is barely holding it together, her entire chibi-style body vibrating with a mix of feverish cold and pure, unadulterated adrenaline. As the clock finally strikes the hour, Ms. Zhou stands up to head out, leaving Zhan Ying lingering in the wake of her commanding presence. Zhan Ying reaches out, her fingers brushing the lapel of the borrowed jacket, as she tries to find the courage to say something to the woman walking away. Ms. Zhou pauses at the door, tilting her head just enough to show the sharp line of her jaw and the cold sparkle of her long earring. With a final lingering look, she disappears through the door, leaving the office feeling suddenly empty. Back at her desk, Zhan Ying finds herself glancing left and right, making sure no one is watching her every move as she clutches the blazer. She slowly lifts the collar of the blazer to her face, her breath hitching as the sophisticated, floral scent of Ms. Zhu's perfume floods her senses. It's a scent that lingers deep within the fabric, a ghost of a touch that makes her feel like she's being enveloped in a private, secret world. In her mind, the office walls melt away into a garden of blooming hydrangeas, where Ms. Zhu's arms are wrapped firmly and warmly around her from behind. The fantasy is so vivid, she can almost feel the heat of her boss's skin, and Zhan Ying snaps back to reality with a wide-eyed, startled gasp. She frantically pulls the jacket tighter around her, burying her burning cheeks in the fabric, as if she could hide her scandalous thoughts within the threads. Her blonde deskmate watches her with a look of pure judgment, muttering about how absolutely gross and perverted Zhan Ying is being right now. Suddenly, a shadow falls over her desk, and Zhan Ying freezes as she realizes her boss has returned and is standing right behind her. Ms. Zhou leans down, her piercing eyes narrowing as she catches the girl looking like a guilty, blushing kitten. "Why do you look so happy?" she asks, teasing lilt in her voice that sends a fresh wave of heat to Zhan Ying's face. Before Zhan Ying can stammer out an excuse, Ms. Zhao turns away with a dismissive shrug, telling a colleague that it's nothing important. The sun beats down on the towering glass monoliths of the corporate world, marking the day everything changed. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of fresh coffee and the nervous energy of new recruits being told to find a partner for their first task. For Zhan Ying, the room starts to spin as the sheer number of strangers feels like a tidal wave crashing over her fragile social batteries. She tries to speak, her voice trembling as she attempts an introduction, but the words catch in her throat until she accidentally bites her tongue in a fit of pure, clumsy panic. Just as she's about to sink into the floor from the embarrassment, a sudden shadow looms over her, snapping her out of her spiraling thoughts. A pushy senior employee flashes a predatory grin, insisting that there's absolutely no problem with the task as long as she agrees to work with him. He leans in far too close, his breath ghosting over her skin as he pryingly asks if a girl as cute as her already has a boyfriend. Suddenly, a sharp smack echoes through the air as a hand firmly interjects, cutting through the suffocating tension. A vibrant blonde girl appears like a ray of sunshine, her eyes sparkling with mischief as she demands to know why the senior is bothering her new friend. With a dazzling, confident smile that could light up the entire office, she radiates an aura of absolute protection. "Sorry," she chirps, her voice like honey but her eyes flashing a warning. "But she already agreed to be in my group." Without waiting for an answer, she shoves the stunned man aside, leading Zhan Ying away from the awkward confrontation with a firm grip. They duck into the quiet sanctuary of the tea-making room, the door swinging shut on the chaos of the office outside. Zhan Ying can barely catch her breath, her heart hammering against her ribs as she looks up at her unexpected savior. The blonde girl leans in, her amber eyes searching Zhan Ying's face with a warmth that makes the poor girl's cheeks flush a deep crimson. Finding her courage, Zhan Ying finally manages to whisper her name, her voice small and sweet in the quiet room. A soft, genuine smile breaks across her face, a rare moment of connection that feels like a secret shared between just the two of them. The blonde girl, Wang Leil, watches her with an intensity that suggests she's seeing something far deeper than just a shy coworker. She twirls around with a playful energy, her ponytail whipping through the air as she celebrates their new partnership. But then, her gaze drops, her eyes narrowing as she catches sight of something specific on Zhan Ying's outfit. "Wait," she gasps, pointing a finger with sudden, electric excitement. "Is that a black and pink shirt?" Zhan Ying's eyes go wide, her pulse quickening as she realizes she's been spotted by a fellow connoisseur of the secret arts. The two girls begin frantically listing off titles like Citrus and Daikon and Hammer, their voices rising in a feverish, joyful pitch. Stars practically erupt in Zhan Ying's eyes as the realization hits her she's found a fellow legend in the wild. They reach out, their fingers almost touching in a moment of pure, unadulterated recognition of their shared passions. Wang Leil grabs her hands, her face glowing with the thrill of finding someone who understands the hidden language of their hearts. After all, Leil giggles, every girl is cute, but if you had to choose just one, they both descend into a fantasy of their favorite tropes, their imaginations running wild with the romantic possibilities of their kind. But as the echoes of their laughter die down, a heavy, suffocating silence suddenly fills the small room. The air crackles with a new kind of tension as they both realize they might have misinterpreted the exact nature of their shared identity. They stare at each other, the realization dawning like a cold bucket of water over their shared excitement. "So, what exactly did you mean when you said we were the same kind?" Zhan Ying stammers, her face turning a ghostly pale. The confusion is written in every line of their faces, the beautiful chemistry of a moment ago dissolving into pure, unmitigated awkwardness. Zhan Ying's survival instincts kick in, and she begins a slow, panicked retreat away from the blonde bombshell. Without another word, she bolts for the nearest exit, her dignity trailing behind her like a tattered cape. She dives into the darkness of a nearby locker, peeking out through the crack with eyes full of regret and social horror. With a definitive bangui, she slams the door shut, deciding that the closet is the only place she ever belongs again. Xiao Zhan stands before the mirror, her heart racing as she meticulously applies a sharp wing of eyeliner, wanting her eyes to sparkle just right for a guest. She glides a rich, berry-colored lipstick over her lips, a final touch of elegance for what she hopes will be a perfect afternoon. Her fingers tremble slightly as she adjusts a delicate heart-shaped pendant against her collarbone, the cool metal a sharp contrast to her warming skin. Checking her reflection one last time, she lets out a soft, nervous breath, her eyes filled with a mix of anticipation and pure, unadulterated excitement. Suddenly, the sharp ding-dong of the doorbell echoes through the apartment, making her jump as her pulse quickens. "Coming! Just a second!" she calls out, practically flying toward the entrance, her hand reaching for the handle with a sense of urgency. She swings the door open to find Ms. Zhou standing there, looking effortlessly chic even with a cat carrier in one hand and bags in the other. "I'm so sorry for coming to trouble you today," Ms. Zhao says with a warm, apologetic smile, but Xiaozhan can only shake her head in frantic, happy denial. Ms. Zhou's eyes soften as she looks Xiaozhan up and down, a playful and appreciative glint appearing in her gaze. "Xiaozhan, you look really cute today," she whispers, the compliment causing a massive heat wave to rush to the younger girl's cheeks. Ms. Zhao steps into the entryway, explaining with a light chuckle that gathering all the cat's things took a bit more time than she anticipated. She hands over a pink shopping bag, her fingers brushing against Xiaozhan's in a brief, electric moment of contact that sends shivers down the girl's spine. "Since it's the first time meeting your cat, I felt I had to bring some gifts. I hope he likes these snacks and toys," Ms. Zhao adds thoughtfully. Xiaozhan tells her to just leave her shoes and head inside, while she goes to retrieve her own feline companion from the other room. But she pauses, turning back with a confused "eh?" as Ms. Zhao holds out yet another beautifully wrapped box. "And this is specifically for you," Ms. Zhao says, her smile turning incredibly sweet. "Didn't you mention back at the office that you really wanted to try this specific brand of Napoleon cake?" she asks, proving she remembers every little detail. Xiao Zhan stares at the box, her heart swelling with an overwhelming sense of victory and affection for the woman standing in her living room. As they finally settle in, the decadent, strawberry-topped cake sits on the table, the atmosphere between them growing thick with a cozy, domestic intimacy. Xiao Zhan curiously asks if she lives alone, to which Ms. Zhu replies that while she has a roommate, work usually keeps her away on the weekends. She looks down at the cat carrier on the floor, cooing at the adorable, big-eyed creature waiting patiently inside. His name is Dragon Fruit, Xiao Zhan explains, warning her guest that the cat is usually quite terrified of strangers and very shy. But to her absolute shock, the moment the carrier door is opened, the traitorous cat leaps directly onto Ms. Zhu's lap without a second thought. Xiao Zhan can only watch in stunned, wide-eyed silence as Dragon Fruit makes himself perfectly comfortable, purring under the stranger's touch. "Damn you little fart cat," she grumbles internally, feeling a ridiculous pang of jealousy toward her own pet for getting so close to Ms. Zhu. Ms. Zhu, oblivious to the feline betrayal, looks up with a bright smile and asks if the cake tastes as good as the rumors suggested. Xiao Zhan beams back at her, her eyes crinkling with genuine joy as she takes a blissful bite of the sweet, flaky pastry. Without thinking, she lifts her fork toward Ms. Zhu's mouth, her voice soft as she asks if she'd like to try a bite of the delicious treat. Ms. Zhu's gaze intensifies, her eyes hooded as she leans forward, accepting the intimate gesture without hesitation. Xiao Zhan's breath hitches and her heart hammers against her ribs as she watches Ms. Zhao take the bite, the realization of what she just did finally crashing down on her in a wave of crimson blushes. Zhan strokes the soft fur, questioning why a kitten would be named Dragon Fruit. Zhou smiles, beginning the story of the day she first brought the tiny creature home. She recalls a younger version of herself walking into the living room to find a messy surprise. The naughty kitten had dived into a bowl of fruit, staining its white coat a stubborn, vibrant purple. Zhou giggles at the memory while Zhan struggles to contain the wriggling cat. Zhao shifts the conversation, asking if Zhan has finally chosen a name for her own pet. With a bright, carefree expression, Zhou reveals she simply calls her cat Mimi. Zhan freezes, her heart skipping a beat as she processes the surprisingly cute name. Is there a problem with it? Zhao asks, her eyes wide with innocent curiosity. Zhan stammers that it is a common name, though her mind is clearly elsewhere. Zhao leans in close, her scent overwhelming Zhan as she suggests Zhan should pick a new name. "Please," she murmurs, her gaze so intense that Zhan can't look away. Zhan stands up abruptly, her face flushed as she tries to break the heavy tension. She scoops up the orange tabby, desperate to focus on anything but Zhu's proximity. She stares into the cat's emerald eyes, searching for inspiration under Zhu's watchful gaze. A flurry of names crosses her mind, each one feeling inadequate for the moment. "Let's go with Zhan Zhao," she announces, her voice trembling slightly with excitement. Zhao watches her with a playful, knowing smile, enjoying the younger woman's enthusiasm. Zhan begins chanting the name, hoping the cat will recognize its new identity. However, the feline remains completely unmoved, choosing to lick its paw instead. The second Zhan whispers, "Mimi," the cat perks up with a joyful meow. An awkward, heavy silence falls between the two women as they stare at the cat. Zhao breaks into a soft laugh, noting that the cat clearly prefers the more affectionate name. Zhan's thoughts spiral, obsessing over the intimate feeling the name Mimi carries. Zhao repeats the word intimate softly, her voice sending a shiver down Zhan's spine. Zhan's breath hitches as she catches Zhu looking at her with a tender expression. Zhou then declares that calling her Ms. Zhu outside of work is now strictly forbidden. Zhan's face explodes in a deep crimson, her composure completely shattering at the request. "Call me Xiao Ying instead," Zhao whispers, her eyes sparkling with a hint of mischief. Zhan hides her face in her hands, her pulse racing at the newfound closeness. Outside, the city lights hum with energy, far removed from the quiet tension of the apartment. Zhan's friend Lil picks up the phone, startled by the sheer panic in Zhan's voice. Hiding in the bathroom, Zhan frantically explains the Sister Zhu incident to her friend. She cringes, replaying the moment her voice failed her in front of her crush. With tears of embarrassment, she tells Lil that her life is effectively over. Meanwhile, Zhao fixes her makeup, her thoughts still lingering on the way Zhan said her name. The two felines face off on the floor, hackles raised in a tense standoff while Yuanyou suggests a more casual name to break the ice between them. As Xiao Ying rummages through her bag with frantic energy, Yuanyou watches her with a look of deep, quiet contemplation, her mind clearly wandering elsewhere. Xiao Ying's face finally lights up with a triumphant grin as she pulls out a bag of dried fish, eager to spoil their new furry companions. The cat's eyes widen into sparkling diamonds, their tiny hearts racing at the mere sight of the delicious snacks being revealed. Xiao Ying laughs softly, gently telling the overexcited kittens to slow down as they practically climb over her to get a taste of the treats. Yuanyou leans in, her gaze softening with a hint of mischief as she asks Xiao Ying if she's ever actually tasted one of these cat treats herself. Xiao Ying stammers, her face heating up with a sudden blush as she admits she's only heard that they are surprisingly flavorless and bland. To Xiao Ying's absolute shock, Yuanyou simply takes a bite of the freeze-dried chicken, her expression remaining perfectly calm and elegant. "How does it taste?" Zhao Ying asks, her breath hitching as she watches Yuanyou chew with a playful glint in her eyes. Yuanyou leans even closer, the air between them thick with sudden, heart-pounding tension as she tells Zhao Ying to open her mouth for a sample. Zhao Ying freezes, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird as she stares at Yuanyou's slender fingers held just inches from her lips. This moment feels like a scene pulled straight from her wildest dreams, a flicker of pure, unadulterated happiness igniting in her chest. She slowly parts her lips, allowing Yuanyou to feed her the treat, the world around them fading into a shimmering, romantic blur as their souls seem to touch. Is it tasty? Yuanyou giggles, while Zhao Ying tries to hide her mounting embarrassment behind a flustered, adorable pout. The cats watch the humans with confusion, their little paws reaching out as Yuanyou tells them all to just take it easy and enjoy the snacks. The mood shifts to something more intimate as Zhao Ying's voice turns soft, asking why Yuanyou decided to adopt a pet so suddenly. Yuanyou looks away, a shadow of vulnerability crossing her beautiful features as she considers the weight of the question. The atmosphere becomes electric when Yuanyou turns back, asking Zhao Ying if she's ever considered what it would be like to finally start dating someone. She explains the biting coldness of returning to an empty house after years of living alone, her hand gently stroking the cat's fur for comfort. Zhao Ying's eyes shimmer with an unspoken promise, her heart aching for the loneliness Yuanyou has endured in silence. Determined to be the warmth Yuanyou needs, Zhao Ying clenches her fist and prepares to offer herself as a permanent companion. But the universe has other plans for this dramatic moment, as the ginger cat decides the couch is the perfect place to let nature take its course in a literal rainbow of disaster. The ginger cat looks utterly satisfied with itself, basking in the glory of its poorly timed accident without a single care in the world. Both girls freeze in a state of pure, unadulterated shock, the romantic tension vanishing as they stare at the growing puddle. Chaos erupts as they scramble for napkins and deodorant, the once sweet air now filled with a very different, much stinkier kind of intensity. After the frantic and messy cleanup, they both collapse onto the sofa, completely drained by the feline-induced drama. Yuanyou looks at the ruined slipcover with a weary sigh, offering to buy a new one as she gazes apologetically at her housemate. Zhao Ying just smiles through her exhaustion, insisting that a double wash will make the fabric as good as new. She then goes into full pet parent mode, grabbing the cat and lecturing Yuanyou on the absolute essentials of training and proper pee pads. Zhao Ying's passion for the cat's well-being is undeniable as she squeezes the grumpy feline, explaining the need for toys and canned food. Yuanyou can't help but capture the moment on her phone, focusing her camera on the adorable sight of Zhao Ying bonding with the mischievous pet. Later that night, the evidence of their chaotic but beautiful day appears on a social media feed, a small token of a bond that's growing deeper with every passing hour. Zhao Ying stood before the camera, her heart hammering against her ribs as she finally let the words slip past her lips. I like you. Her gaze was intense, burning with a mix of fear and hope as she followed up with the ultimate gamble. Let's date. But the romantic atmosphere was immediately shattered by Leal's deadpan expression. Her eyes narrowed in utter disbelief. So lame. You've seen way too many dramas, Leal groaned, while Zhao Ying desperately defended her practiced confession. The tension between them remained thick as Zhao Ying clenched her fist, determined to make a real move on the mysterious Ms. Zhou. However, the crushing weight of reality hit hard when the thought of Ms. Zhou already having a boyfriend was brought up. Hiding behind a mental wall of caution, the girls whispered about the dangers of falling for someone who might not even be available. Zhao Ying's mind spiraled into a chaotic mess of secret marriages and straight girl traps, making her head spin with anxiety. The poor girl looked like she was about to lose her soul right then, her energy completely drained by the stress. A heavy, gloomy cloud seemed to settle over her as she realized how little she actually knew about the woman who had captured her heart. Suddenly, a hand reached into her field of vision, extending a paper bag that smelled faintly of fresh coffee. Zhao Ying jumped as she realized Ms. Zhou was standing right there, her elegant presence commanding the entire room. The office staff were all aflutter, wondering what on earth the high and mighty director was doing in their department so early. With a small, polite smile, Ms. Zhou thanked them for their hard work, leaving the girls completely starstruck. Close up, her beauty was almost ethereal, her emerald eyes sparkling with a kindness that made Zhao Ying's heart skip a beat. Zhao Ying could hardly believe it when Ms. Zhao remembered exactly how she liked her coffee, handing it over with a soft glance. Even Leal wasn't left out, receiving a special cup with butter just the way she preferred. As Ms. Zhou turned to leave, the two girls could only stare after her, lost in a daze of caffeine and adoration. Is it too late for me to hit on her? Leal joked, her eyes twinkling with mischief as she watched Zhao Ying's face turn bright red. Zhao Ying immediately snapped, threatening to throw Leal's coffee away if she dared to become her rival. After the latter died down, Leal took a slow, thoughtful sip of her drink, her expression turning serious once more. She pointed out a strange pattern. No matter how busy she was, Ms. Zhao always left the office precisely on time every Wednesday. Zhao Ying recalled a previous conversation where Ms. Zhao had mentioned her Wednesdays were strictly booked. As the sun began to set over the city, The tall office building glowed with the orange hues of a looming mystery. It was exactly 6 o'clock on a Wednesday evening, and the air was thick with the scent of an impending discovery. Right on schedule, Ms. Zhao clocked out and made her way through the dimly lit parking lot. She opened her car door with her usual graceful movements, unaware that 2 pairs of eyes were watching her every move. Zhao Ying felt a pang of guilt, wondering if it was wrong to follow their boss like this, but her curiosity was simply too strong. Lil, however, was already in the driver's seat, crouching low and peering through the windshield with intense focus. They tried to stay out of sight, but trailing someone in a flashy, high-end sports car was proving to be a challenge. The bright headlights of their vehicle cut through the darkness, threatening to give away their position at any moment. Layla laughed off the danger, while Xiao Ying could only hide her face, praying they wouldn't get caught. Finally, Ms. Zhu's car pulled up in front of a quiet, upscale establishment known as Slow Angel. Stepping inside, the girls were greeted by a dim, atmospheric bar filled with the low hum of conversation and jazz. They quickly spotted Ms. Zhao sitting alone at a secluded table, looking more relaxed than they had ever seen her. Is she waiting for someone? A boyfriend? Zhao Ying whispered, her heart sinking at the thought of a romantic rival. But then, a stylish woman with short hair walked up to the table, a familiar smile playing on her lips. Without a word, the newcomer leaned in close, her hand reaching out to gently cup Ms. Zhu's cheek. In an instant, the world seemed to stop as the woman pulled Ms. Zhou into a deep, passionate kiss right before their eyes. Xiao Ying and Lil could only gape in absolute shock, their minds reeling from the relation they had just witnessed. Ying, take it easy, her friend whispers, trying to ground her as the atmosphere in the room thickens with unspoken implications. Zhan Ying's heart hammers against her ribs as she tries to process the sight of 2 girls sharing a kiss, her mind spinning with the possibility that Ms. Zhu might not be who she thought. Lil, I'm a bit confused now. Give me some space to calm down a little. She stammers, the heat rising to her cheeks as she feels the walls closing in. Her friend can only offer a playful, dismissive shrug, telling her to take all the time she needs to process the shock. But Zhan Ying can't stay a second longer. She bolts from the table, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps as she searches for an exit. The neon lights of the bar blur into streaks of color as she pushes past the crowd, her heart racing faster than her feet. She rushes through the chaotic space, the noise of the music and laughter feeling like a distant roar. Her internal monologue is a chaotic mess of Ms. Zhu kissed a lady. Ms. Zhou is gay. Hold up. She thinks her body moving faster than her brain can keep up with in this state of pure adrenaline. Suddenly, she collides with a firm chest, a sharp bump echoing through her senses as a voice tells her to be careful. Her head snaps up, her gaze locking onto a pair of familiar, piercing eyes at Xiao Ying. What are you doing here? The silver-haired beauty asks, her voice low and smooth. Zhan Ying stares into those mesmerizing eyes, her breath catching in her throat as the world seems to stand still. She focuses on those full, painted lips, completely breathless and unable to find her words. A wave of pure relief washes over her as she realizes this isn't some trick of the light. This is the real one standing right before her. While others wave cheerfully in the distance, Zhan Ying's entire world has narrowed down to this single, intense encounter with the girl she's been searching for. Xiao Ying looks at her with a flicker of curiosity, a silent question mark hanging in the air between them as she wonders what has Zhan Ying so flustered. Turn around. Xiao Ying seems to command with just a look, her presence commanding the entire space. Xiao Ying's eyes widen in surprise as she feels the unexpected weight of the moment, her cool exterior momentarily flickering. Zhan Ying reaches out, her fingers trembling as she gently touches Xiao Ying's face, needing to confirm that she's truly there. What a relief. This is the real one. She thinks, her heart finally finding its rhythm again in the warmth of the other girl's presence. Xiao Ying can only offer a small, forced smile, her heart likely racing just as fast as Zhan Ying's as she tries to maintain her composure. Wait, did you follow me here after work? She asks, noticing Zhan Ying's messy hair and completely inappropriate outfit for a bar scene. Zhan Ying feels completely exposed, her messy hair and casual clothes making her feel utterly out of place in this stylish den. She can only manage a week, as her brain short-circuits under the weight of Xiao Ying's scrutiny. Sorry. I'm leaving now, she stammers, her instinct to flee taking over once again. But before she can bolt, a firm hand clamps down on her arm, a silent command for her to stay put. Zhao Zhu, it's your turn to go on stage. A voice calls out, signaling that the performance is about to begin. Xiao Ying doesn't let go, pulling Zhan Ying along as she calls back that she's coming, her grip sure and steady. With a swift, practiced motion, she guides Zhan Ying into a seat right at the front, her presence magnetic as she prepares to perform. She leans in close, her eyes locking onto Zhan Ying's as she whispers, "Wait for me here," her voice a low vibration that resonates in Zhan Ying's chest. "Don't run away, okay?" she adds, her gaze intense and pleading. Xiao Ying's boot hits the stage floor with a confident thud, the crowd's anticipation reaching a fever pitch. Her slender fingers wrap around the microphone, the silver rings on her hand glinting under the stage lights. As she begins to sing, the room falls silent, her voice a hauntingly beautiful melody that seems to weave through the air like a velvet caress. Her lips move with a raw, emotional grace, every word she utters feeling like a secret shared only with the girl in the front row. Zhan Ying can only watch in awe, her eyes wide and shining as she realizes she is witnessing something truly magical. "That silly girl scared me to death," Zhan Ying muses later, her heart still fluttering as she tries to recover from the intensity of the performance. She decides she needs a drink to finally settle her frayed nerves, reaching for the menu with a shaky hand. Suddenly, a glass is set down in front of her, the unexpected gesture making her eyes snap wide in surprise. Cut to a few minutes later, and the table is littered with empty bottles, the rowdy men who tried to hit on her completely defeated and slumped over in a drunken stupor. Noobs, Zhan Ying scoffs, her eyes filled with a playful arrogance as she looks down at her fallen challengers. She gracefully wipes a stray drop from her lip, her movements calm and collected despite the amount of alcohol she's just consumed. I paid my part of the bill. My friend is waiting for me, she announces, her voice steady and clear. She turns to make her exit, stating firmly that she's leaving now to put this messy encounter behind her. But as she walks away, a hand suddenly darts out to grab her, a drunken voice sneering, "Friend? What friend? Hey! Hands off!" she snaps, her annoyance flaring as the man gets clingy and refuses to let her go. Suddenly, a powerful force intervenes, a push-away action sending the man stumbling back as a stunning woman in a white dress appears like a guardian angel to claim her place. The stranger's jaw drops as the stunning dark-haired beauty delivers a bombshell that leaves him completely speechless. Girlfriend? Zhou Ying looks up, her heart hammering against her ribs as she processes the sudden claim and the weight of the hand on her shoulder. Before the creep can even blink, her mysterious savior leans in close, her presence a protective shield that cements the lie. She shoots the man a look of pure, unadulterated ice, completely ignoring his existence as if he were nothing more than a stain on the floor. The man isn't going down without a fight, however, badgering them and shouting that women only claim to hate the attention because they secretly love it. He leans in aggressively with a drink in his hand, warning them not to get in the way of his fun. The heavy atmosphere of the club seems to hold its breath as the sound of approaching footsteps comes to a sudden, sharp pause. Ms. Zhao turns around with a look of mild surprise, her golden eyes shimmering with a mysterious light under the neon glow. Flashback to 15 minutes ago, where the stage was owned by a different kind of star as a silver-haired goddess finishes her set, leaning into the microphone with a sultry smile to thank the adoring crowd. Yuanyou looks like a true rock star, her fingers lingering on the mic stand with an effortless, cool grace. She hops off the stage and makes a beeline for Zhou Ying, who can hardly believe that her sis Yuanyou actually works here as a resident singer. Yuanyou takes a seat, her magnetic aura filling the space as Zhou Ying gushes over her incredible performance. "What did you think I came here for then?" She teases, her voice a low, playful hum that makes Zhou Ying's pulse quicken. Zhou Ying blushes and asks if she came for a date, only for Yuanyou to reach out and playfully flick her forehead. Speculating about people behind their backs isn't nice, she chides, though her expression remains soft as Zhou Ying cowers in adorable embarrassment. Yuanyou reaches out, her hand gently caressing Zhou Ying's hair in a moment of pure, heart-stopping tenderness. She leans in, her gaze intense and focused as she whispers that next time, if Zhou Ying wants to know something about her, she should just ask. Zhou Ying, still flustered by the physical contact, tries to change the subject by asking why Yuanyou plays live music at this specific bar. Yuanyou points toward a bright-eyed girl across the room, explaining that the owner is a close friend she promised to help out every Wednesday. Just then, a server arrives with a vibrant, fruity cocktail, announcing it's a special gift from the boss for Yuanyou's friend. Yuanyou's eyes narrow instantly, her suspicious radar pinging as she looks at the colorful drink. The bar owner just winks from afar, clearly enjoying the mischief she's causing between the two. Yuanyou doesn't hesitate, reaching out to take the glass before Zhou Ying can even touch it. She takes a cautious sip herself, her face falling as she realizes the alcohol content is dangerously high. "It's a zombie," she warns, telling Zhou Ying it's far too strong for her to handle and she shouldn't drink it. She stands up abruptly, ready to give the server a piece of her mind for serving such a potent drink to her innocent friend. As Yuanyou chases after the staff, Zhou Ying is left alone, thinking about how incredibly cute and reliable her sis Zhu is when she's being protective. Suddenly, she remembers her other friend Lil and checks her phone in a sudden panic. She sees a message from Lil teasing her about being a third wheel and telling her to enjoy her time with Miss Zhu. Back in the present, the tension between Zhou Ying and Miss Zhu reaches a boiling point as they face the harasser. Miss Zhu leans in, her thumb grazing Zhou Ying's lip to create the perfect illusion of a deep, passionate kiss. The distance between them vanishes, leaving Zhou Ying's mind a complete blank as her heart threatens to leap out of her chest. Ms. Zhao pulls back with a triumphant, playful laugh, still holding Zhou Ying's hand as she flaunts their relationship to the stunned harasser. She practically drags the blushing blonde away, leaving the creep in the dust without another word. Once they're safe in the hallway, Ms. Zhou apologizes for jumping in uninvited, but Zhou Ying is quick to insist that she's the one who should be grateful. The memory of that thumb-pressed kiss lingers in Zhou Ying's mind, her heart fluttering at how considerate her savior was. Ms. Zhao notices her dazed expression and offers to call her a cab, promising to keep her company while they wait outside. Zhou Ying nods, but she's feeling more than just romantic butterflies. A sudden wave of dizziness hits her like a freight train. Her vision blurs and her eyes widen in shock as her legs suddenly give out from under her. "Hold on, don't." Ms. Zhou gasps, reaching out just in time to catch Zhou Ying in a desperate, protective hug as she falls. A vibrant watermelon cocktail sits untouched on the bar, its cool condensation mirroring the rising heat between the two women. Yuanyou leans in, her voice a low, melodic purr as she suggests it's nearly time to leave, offering a ride that feels more like an invitation to something more. Her striking blue eyes search Zhao Ying's face, looking for any crack in that composed, straight-laced exterior. With a playful smirk that doesn't quite reach her calculating eyes, she reminds her companion that work awaits them both in the morning. Suddenly, Yuanyou reaches out, her slender finger tracing a gentle stroke across Zhao Ying's forehead, causing the poor girl's breath to hitch in her throat. The atmosphere shifts as they prepare to part, the heavy bass of the club music fading into the background of their shared, unspoken tension. But just as they reach the exit, Zhao Ying stops abruptly, her hands frantically fumbling through her pockets in a sudden wave of realization. Panic flashes in her eyes as she realizes her keys are missing, leaving her vulnerable and stranded in the dead of night. With trembling fingers, she scrolls through her phone, desperately seeking a lifeline from the one person who should be there. Yi Bao, please tell me you're home, she pleads into the phone, her voice cracking with a vulnerability she rarely shows. On the other end of the line, her housemate's face twists in a mix of guilt and excitement as she delivers the news Zhao Ying feared most. She's out of town meeting her girlfriend, leaving Zhao Ying completely locked out of their shared life. The line goes dead with a final, echoing click, leaving the girl staring at the dark screen in stunned, helpless silence. Yuanyou watches the drama unfold with the grace of a predator, realizing her golden opportunity has just fallen right into her lap. She leans in close enough for Zhao Ying to catch the scent of her perfume, asking with a dangerous tilt of her head if she'd fancy a sleepover instead. Zhao Ying's eyes go wide, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird at the sheer audacity of the proposal. The shock is written across her blushing face, her mind a whirlwind of desire and terror at the thought of being alone with Yuanyou. High above, the night sky is a sprawling canvas of indifferent stars, oblivious to the high-stakes game of hearts being played below. A card key swipes against an electronic lock with a soft, clinical beat, granting them entry into Yuanyou's private world. Inside, the scene shifts to a dimly lit bedroom where the air is thick with a heavy, intoxicating stillness. A figure is laid down with agonizing gentleness onto the bed, the soft sheets welcoming her as she drifts deeper into a forced slumber. This is Xianglan's room, currently empty while she's away on business. But tonight it serves a very different purpose. Hey, wake up, a soft voice whispers, accompanied by a cautious shake that barely disturbs the silence. Dark, golden eyes gaze down with a complex mixture of concern and hidden longing as a hand reaches out to tuck a stray lock of hair behind an ear. The girl on the bed lets out a soft, pained moan, her face flushed a deep crimson as she struggles against the fog in her mind. She has passed out with startling speed, her sound sleep a stark contrast to the storm brewing in the woman watching over her. A shadow of suspicion crosses the observer's mind, wondering if the drink was merely strong or if something far more sinister was at play. She approaches once more, her movements hesitant as she checks to see if the sleeping beauty is truly all right. A soft mumble escapes the girl's lips, a fragmented dream that makes the observer's heart skip a frantic beat. The woman freezes, her breath caught in her lungs as she stares at the raw, unfiltered vulnerability laid bare before her. The room falls into a heavy, expectant quiet, the world outside feeling like a distant, fading memory. Across the city, the lights of the skyline flicker like a million tiny eyes, watching over the secrets hidden behind closed doors. The urban landscape is a beautiful, cold mosaic of neon and shadow, a perfect backdrop for the drama unfolding in the dark. Back in the apartment, Zhao Ying looks around with wide, nervous eyes, her cheeks burning with a heat she can't explain. Yuanyou casually offers her a pair of slippers, acting as if inviting a beautiful girl for a midnight stay was the most natural thing in the world. Zhao Ying sinks onto the sofa, clutching a startled cat to her chest as her thoughts spiral into a frantic loop of panic and what-ifs. Standing over her, Yuanyou suggests a shower to wash away the night, her voice smooth and entirely too persuasive. Zhao Ying looks up, her voice small as she realizes she lacks even the most basic necessities for an overnight stay. In an instant, Yuanyou produces a brand new toothbrush, her expression a mask of helpfulness that Zhao Ying doesn't quite trust. She presents an entire arsenal of toiletries, her hands moving with a practiced grace that suggests she was more than prepared for this. Zhao Ying can't help but wonder if this entire night was a carefully laid trap, her heart racing at the implications. Yuanyou's eyes sparkle with a hidden, playful light as she confesses that she's never actually had a friend stay over before. Internally, Zhao Ying is screaming, convinced she's walked right into a straight girl trap from which there is no escape. She tries to maintain her composure, forcing a bright smile while her mind frantically warns her to stay on guard. Yuanyou holds up 2 sets of matching striped pajamas, her gaze hopeful and intense as she waits for Zhao Ying to finally surrender to the night. Zhao Ying steps out of the steam, her long dark hair still damp and clinging to her skin as the droplets trail down her neck. With soft, rhythmic thuds, her slippers meet the cold metal of the spiral staircase as she makes her way down to the living area. "Sis Yuanyou?" She calls out softly, her voice echoing in the quiet, modern apartment as she grips the railing. Yuanyou looks up from the sofa, a fluffy ginger cat cradled in her arms like a precious treasure, and offers a tired but warm smile now that her own shower is finished. Zhao Ying stops dead in her tracks, her eyes widening at the sight of a coffee table absolutely overflowing with every snack imaginable. She hesitates, shifting her weight between her feet as she realizes this sleepover is turning into a full-blown midnight feast. "Come on, sit down," Yuanyou urges, patting the cushion beside her while the cat watches with curious, glowing eyes. Zhao Ying gingerly takes her place, her slippers brushing against the plush carpet as the tension in the room begins to simmer. Suddenly, Yuanyou reaches out, her slender fingers with their striking black polish gently grazing Zhao Ying's skin. "I squeezed out a bit too much lotion," Yuanyou explains playfully, her expression softening the sudden intimacy of the moment. She begins to stroke the cream into Zhao Ying's hand, the gentle, circular motion sending a strange shiver through the younger girl. Yuanyou's touch lingers, her gaze dropping as she lifts Zhao Ying's wrist to inspect it more closely. Zhao Ying's breath hitches, her vibrant red eyes searching Yuanyou's face for any sign of what she's thinking. The air grows heavy as Yuanyou's eyes fall upon a small, delicate mark of secret etched into the skin. "Wait, is that a tattoo?" Zhao Ying whispers, her heart hammering against her ribs as the discovery hangs between them. Yuanyou gives a small, bashful smile, admitting she got it during her rebellious high school days, and usually keeps it hidden under a layer of concealer. She settles back into the sofa, the cat nestled comfortably against her as she lets out a long, contemplative sigh. "I don't really want others to know about this part of me," she murmurs, her emerald eye reflecting a depth of hidden sorrow. Zhao Ying is stunned into silence, her mind racing with questions about what kind of heartbreak could have led to such a permanent secret. Yuanyou turns the tables, her voice dropping to a teasing lilt as she asks if Zhao Ying has any skeletons in her own closet. Zhao Ying looks away, her gaze flickering with a sudden, sharp pain as memories she thought were buried begin to resurface. In her mind's eye, she's back in her school uniform, standing before someone she once adored with all her heart. She remembers the weight of the pink envelope in her hand, the heart-shaped seal, a symbol of a hope that was about to be crushed. The realization that her feelings were nothing more than a beautiful, cruel illusion hits her all over again. She can still feel the burning sting of embarrassment, the way she wanted to vanish into the shadows of the school hallway. Even now, the memory makes her eyes mist over with a lingering, unresolved ache. "Back then, I didn't know anything," she confesses with a sad smile. "I couldn't imagine why anyone would ever like me." Yuanyou's expression shifts instantly, her playful demeanor replaced by a fierce, protective certainty as she insists that Zhao Ying is more than worthy of love. She lists off Zhao Ying's charms, from her incredible patience with animals to her quiet, diligent dedication at the office. Yuanyou leans in, her smile radiant and genuine, making Zhao Ying feel like the only person in the entire world. The praise is too much for Zhao Ying's heart to handle, and she feels her entire face ignite into a brilliant, flaming blush. She slumps back against the cushions, her mind a chaotic whirl as she wonders exactly what or who she should be working so hard for. Yuanyou breaks the spell by passing over a cold drink, her movements fluid and effortless despite the late hour. She begins to tidy up the remains of their feast, the crinkle of snack bags punctuating the comfortable silence. "Since I live alone, the guest room is a bit of a mess," Yuanyou says casually. "Do you mind if we squeeze together tonight?" As the cat trots off toward the stairs, Yuanyou bids her a soft goodnight, leaving Zhao Ying to process the bombshell. Zhao Ying lies staring into the darkness, her pulse still erratic as the reality of their proximity sinks in. She lets out a muffled internal scream, realizing she's not just sharing a bed with her crush, but a very territorial cat as well. Yuanyou's voice drifts through the room, a gentle reminder not to let the words of an old upperclassman haunt her anymore. Zhao Ying pulls the covers up to her nose, hiding her burning cheeks as a final, shocking truth echoes in her mind. The person who had broken her heart all those years ago wasn't a boy at all, but a woman she had looked up to with starry-eyed devotion. Outside, the city lights twinkle like distant memories, watching over the two girls as they drift toward a restless sleep. A soft golden sunbeam slices through the morning silence, resting upon the pillow where her heavy head lay. She let out a soft, groggy moan, rolling over as the warmth of the light nudged her back to the waking world. "Why didn't my alarm ring today?" she muttered to herself, the covers still wrapped tightly around her frame. Suddenly, her eyes snapped wide open as the fog of sleep evaporated into pure adrenaline. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she bolted upright, the terrifying realization hitting her this wasn't her home. She scanned the unfamiliar, cold space, her breath hitching as she tried to piece together the fragments of the night before. "A hotel?" she whispered, her fingers nervously caressing her throat as a shiver ran down her spine. A blurry memory flickered in her mind. She had fainted, and she couldn't help but wonder if that mysterious woman had carried her all this way. In her mind's eye, she saw her smaller self, lost and confused, while the shadow of that elegant stranger loomed large. Swinging her legs out of bed, she moved toward the table, her eyes landing on a small slip of paper. She reached out with trembling fingers to take the note, staring at the handwriting that held a WeChat ID. "What's this?" she breathed, her cheeks flushing as she realized she had been left with a way to find her again. She clutched the paper to her chest, the simple ink feeling like a heavy secret she wasn't ready to share. Elsewhere, the quiet morning was filled with the domestic sound, milk being poured while a cat happily feasted nearby. Zhao Ying made her way down the spiral staircase, her steps hesitant as she faced the reality of the morning. She looked at Yuanyou in surprise, seeing the spread of food and asking if she had truly made all of this herself. The two sat down to a breakfast that felt far too intimate, the steam from their mugs rising between them like a veil. Yuanyou Yuanyou leaned in with a playful, mischievous glint in her eyes, commenting on how natural they looked together. "Don't you think I'm just like your mom?" Yuanyou teased, her voice dripping with mock sincerity. Zhao Ying instantly choked, spitting out her drink in a chaotic spray as her face turned a brilliant shade of crimson. Even the household cat seemed to judge the awkwardness of the moment, calmly licking its paw in the corner. Later that morning, the heavy thud of tired feet echoed through the station as the workday began. Every step felt like a marathon, their shoes clicking against the pavement with a rhythmic, exhausted beat. Both girls looked like they had been put through a ringer, their eyes glazed over from a complete lack of energy. They shuffled through the turnstiles like ghosts, the weight of the night's events still hanging heavy on their shoulders. A sharp ding announced the arrival of the elevator, the doors sliding open to reveal a cramped space. They were forced to squeeze in, shoulders bumping against strangers as the tension in the air became stifling. Her friend's eyes widened as she whispered a scandalous observation: Zhao Ying was still wearing the same clothes from yesterday. "Sha! Not so loud," Zhao Ying hissed, pointing a frantic finger as she tried to hide her mounting embarrassment. They stood in a stunned, silent deadlock, the weight of the secret threatening to burst right there in the crowded car. Once they reached the safety of the pantry, her friend's voice rose in a frantic whisper, desperate to know the juicy details. Zhao Ying explained that the woman was gone when she woke up, leaving behind nothing but a cryptic ID on a scrap of paper. "But surely you felt something?" her friend teased, a wicked grin spreading across her face as she brought up the supposed kiss. "I told you, we didn't kiss!" Zhao Ying shouted in a tiny, flustered rage, her hands flying up in a desperate defense. Their bickering was cut short when a coworker waved them over, announcing that Ms. Zhao had an important announcement for the morning meeting. Still reeling from the gossip, Zhao Ying was dragged toward the conference room, her mind a chaotic whirlpool. She slumped into her chair, the mundane office setting feeling worlds away from the heat she felt in her chest. Yuanyou stood at the head of the table, professionally announcing a new project and a representative from their partner company. With a graceful gesture, Yuanyou prepared to introduce the woman who would be working alongside them. The air in the room seemed to thin as Yuanyou signaled for the guest to step forward. A tall, ethereal woman with long raven hair and piercing golden eyes smiled, introducing herself as Xiang Lan. The entire team sat in a stunned hush, captivated by the overwhelming aura of the newcomer. Zhao Ying's friend frantically poked her, whispering the impossible truth: it was her, the woman from last night. Zhao Ying's breath hitched as she stared up, her heart stopping as those golden eyes met her own. A close-up of her face revealed a mask of pure, unadulterated shock, her world tilting on its axis. She was completely dazed, the sounds of the office fading into a dull roar as she struggled to breathe. Sitting frozen in her chair, Zhao Ying realized that her mysterious savior was now her new senior colleague. Xiang Lan's eyes widen with a spark of recognition as she leans in, a playful smile dancing on her lips. "Oh? Zhan Ying? You're Zhan Ying, aren't you?" she asks, her voice dripping with a warmth that catches everyone off guard. Zhan Ying's heart practically hammers against her ribs as she looks up, a faint blush creeping across her cheeks. "Yeah. You remember me," she stammers, clearly not expecting to be recognized in such a formal setting. The air in the room shifts as Xiang Lan reminisces about their shared past, noting how much cuter Zhan Ying has become since their school days. The silver-haired Yuanyou tilts her head, her sharp gaze darting between the two women as she tries to piece together their connection. "You know each other?" she asks, her voice calm but laced with an undeniable curiosity. Xiang Lan doesn't miss a beat, explaining with a grin that they studied at the same high school, though she was 2 years ahead. Across the table, Wang Leila can hardly believe her ears, her mouth hanging open at the sheer impossibility of such a coincidence. Xiang Lan seems genuinely thrilled, leaning back and sighing with relief that she already has an old acquaintance in the room. But Yuanyou isn't one for long-winded reunions. She steps forward, effectively blocking the flow of nostalgia as she announces that the project collaboration will be passed to Lille. A faint smirk plays on Yuanyou's face as she justifies the decision, pointing out that since they are already familiar, the work should proceed much more smoothly. In a moment of internal chaos, the character's tiny chibi forms bicker, with Yuanyou seemingly enjoying the confusion she's caused. Nearby, a weary colleague asks why she looks so smug during a serious meeting, only for her to dismiss him with a cheerful, "You wouldn't understand." Finally, the tension of the boardroom breaks as Yuanyou calls an end to the session, declaring the meeting dismissed. As the others begin to pack up, Yuanyou's voice rings out again, instructing Zhan Ying to wait for her in her private office. Lille is left fuming in the background, grumbling under her breath about the mountain of work that's just been dumped on her shoulders. Suddenly, a sharp-eyed staff member gasps, pointing toward Yuanyou's ankle with a shocked expression. "Eh? You have a tattoo?" she exclaims, drawing everyone's attention to the hidden ink. Zhan Ying freezes as she looks down, her eyes locking onto the elegant script etched into Yuanyou's skin. A mental siren blares in Zhan Ying's head as she recalls Yuanyou mentioning that very tattoo during their private conversation the night before. Panicking at the thought of Yuanyou's cool professional image being ruined, Zhan Ying clenches her fist, her face turning a bright shade of crimson. She frantically waves her hand in the air, desperate to interrupt the curiosity wave that's currently scanning her boss like a laser beam. "It's okay. I already got my coffee," she shouts out of nowhere, throwing out a nonsensical distraction that leaves the room in stunned silence. Desperate to move the spotlight, She points a finger at Yuanyou and asks if she wasn't just about to assign her a super important task. When Yuanyou looks at her with a blank, confused stare, Zhan Ying realizes she has to go even bigger to save the situation. She lunges forward, grabbing Lila's arm and shouting her name at the top of her lungs to create a scene. With a grip of iron, she begins dragging the poor blonde girl toward the exit, making a swift and chaotic escape from the prying eyes of the office. The room falls into a sudden, heavy silence as the remaining staff members stare at the doorway in utter bewilderment. Even as she disappears down the hall, Zhan Ying's voice can still be heard echoing back, shouting a string of random names to keep the chaos alive. Lil finally snaps, screaming, "Are you crazy?" as she struggles against the unexpected kidnapping. Back in the quiet of the office, Yuanyou leans in close to Zhan Ying, her emerald eyes searching her face with genuine concern. "What's wrong? You've been acting strange," she whispers, her breath ghosting over Zhan Ying's skin. Zhan Ying leans in, her voice dropping to a protective whisper as she tells Yuanyou that she doesn't have to talk about the tattoo if she feels uncomfortable. She looks away, her face burning with an embarrassment so intense she feels like she might melt into the floorboards. But to her surprise, Yuanyou doesn't seem bothered at all. She calmly pulls the hem of her trousers to put the ink on full display. The tattoo is revealed to be a quirky reference to a roe deer and a watermelon, a remnant of a high school band name that seems far too silly for a woman of her stature. The revelation hits Zhan Ying like a bolt of lightning, her eyes widening as the cool mystery she was trying to protect turns out to be something so endearingly dorky. As Xianglan and Lil look on in confusion, Zhan Ying decides she can't handle the emotional whiplash for another second and makes a swift escape. She flees down the corridor, tears of pure mortification pricking at her eyes as she screams internally that Yuanyou must think she's a total idiot. Little does she know Yuanyou is watching her retreat with a soft, affectionate gaze, thinking to herself just how incredibly cute Zhan Ying really is. The office air feels suddenly heavy, thick with a professional courtesy that borders on something far more intimate. "No worries, you can just call me Xianglan next time," she says, her voice smooth as silk as she looks up from her desk. She leans forward slightly, a playful yet piercing smile dancing on her lips as she asks if there's anything else Zhan Ying needs to know. Zhan Ying freezes, her breath hitching in her throat as she finds herself trapped in that intense, unwavering gaze. Those light eyes seem to see right through her, searching for a secret that Zhan Ying has spent years trying to hide. The silence is broken by a question that feels like a physical blow. "Ms. Zhao, have you ever had a boyfriend?" Zhan Ying can only blink in stunned silence, the air leaving her lungs as a flicker of old. Familiar pain crosses her features. She quickly turns away, forcing a bright, hollow smile as she insists there's no reason for the sudden interrogation. As the sun sets, the scene shifts to the neon glow of a local restaurant, the hum of the city providing a backdrop for a much-needed escape. Outside, the evening air is cool, but the conversation remains heated as the topic of urgent work projects lingers. Inside, Layla is already buried in her tablet, frantically working while trying to shove a meal down her throat. She reaches out with a tired sigh, picking up a stray sandwich from her plate. Between bites and frantic scribbling, she barely looks up, her mind clearly miles away from the drama of the office. Under the table, the sound of a drink being slurped rhythmically fills the small gaps in their conversation. Zhan Ying sits across from her, mechanically chewing her food while her mind replays every second of her interaction with Xianglan. Suddenly, Lila freezes, her eyes widening into saucy dinner plates as a realization hits her. She slides into the seat directly next to Zhan Ying, leaning in close to gossip, asking how on earth she knows the legendary Xianglan so well. Zhan Ying's expression softens into something melancholic and distant. "We were considered close, back in high school," she whispers, the words tasting like bittersweet memories. Lil's internal lightbulb practically shatters with excitement as she wonders aloud if their orientation might be the same. She looks at Zhan Ying with a skeptical, searching expression, asking if she's really truly sure that she's super straight. Zhan Ying stares back, her eyes clouded with a history Lil couldn't possibly understand, before giving a firm, singular nod. Her mind drifts back to the hallways of their youth, to the feeling of a warm hand slipping into hers, fingers intertwining in a silent promise. In that golden afternoon light, Zhan Ying had finally gathered her courage and confessed her heart. She remembers the way Xianglan had smiled at her, a smile that was kind, beautiful, and utterly devastating. Zhan Ying had stood there, her heart thumping against her ribs, her face flushed with a heat that felt like it would never fade. But the rejection came with a gentle laugh. Xianglan told her she'd date her in a heartbeat if only she were a guy. The memory of those words, "like you," still echoes in the chambers of Zhan Ying's heart, a reminder of a love that was doomed before it began. She remembers the sensation of their hands slowly pulling apart, the connection severing as the reality of the situation set in. A single hand reached out into the empty air, reaching for a girl who was already moving toward a future that didn't include her. Back in the present, Lil remains silent for a long moment, the weight of the story hanging between them. She sighs, leaning back and muttering about how easy it is to fall into the straight girl trap. Probing further, she asks the million-dollar question. Does Zhan Ying still carry a torch for her, or has she moved on to someone else? Zhan Ying takes a slow, deliberate sip of her drink, her eyes cast downward as she lies to herself and her friend, claiming it was all a long time ago. The empty plate and half-finished coffee on the table seem to mirror the emptiness in her chest, as she notes they never met again after graduation. Leal doesn't let her wallow for long, giving her a playful nudge to bring her back to reality. She grabs her tablet, ready to get back to the grind, while Zhan Ying tries to convince herself she can finally rest easy. Leal flashes a bright, mischievous grin, joking that she'd only feel guilty if she were stealing a gay girl's heart. With a final burst of energy, the girls head back to the office, the elegant chandeliers overhead mocking the messy state of Zhan Ying's emotions. Late that night, the silence of her apartment is deafening. Zhan Ying sighs to herself, staring at the ceiling and realizing she hasn't spoken to Xianglan since that awkward encounter. She sprawls out on her couch, her cat nestled against her stomach, as she aimlessly scrolls through her phone. She stares at the screen, her thumb hovering over a name, completely unsure of how to bridge the gap between them. Suddenly, her phone erupts into life, vibrating against her chest and startling both her and the cat. Her heart hammers against her ribs as she looks at the caller ID. It's Zhou Yuanyou, calling her in the middle of the night. Her hand trembles slightly as she slides the screen to answer, her voice a mere whisper as she says hello. On the other end, the voice she's been dreaming of all day speaks her name, and Zhan Ying's eyes go wide with a mixture of fear and undeniable longing. The sound of frantic footsteps echoes through the quiet house as Xiao Ying rushes toward the source of the commotion. In her haste, she barely notices her shoes discarded haphazardly on the floor, the laces trailing like forgotten thoughts. Her heart hammers against her ribs as she reaches out to pet the trembling orange cat, her voice cracking as she cries out, "How is she now?" The poor creature looks utterly miserable, refusing to even look at the food or water placed before her as her tiny body shudders. Yuan kneels beside the sofa, her face pale with worry as she watches her friend desperately try to comfort the weak feline. Yuan's eyes widen in terror, the realization of the situation sinking in as she stares at the suffering pet. Xiao Ying tries to remain the voice of reason, suggesting that it might just be a severe case of food poisoning, but her eyes betray her fear. But what exactly it is, we'll have to go to the veterinary hospital to find out, she says, her voice trembling with the weight of the unknown. Guilt washes over Yuan like a cold tide, her gaze dropping as she whispers, "Yeah, it's my fault." A faint, piteous meow breaks the heavy silence, causing Yuan to snap back to her senses with a jolt of renewed determination. Xiao Ying looks at her with such tenderness, trying to offer a sliver of hope in the middle of their shared nightmare. Gently, she scoops Mimi up, wrapping the small, orange body in a warm blue blanket to shield her from the night air. With a final, resolute breath, they prepare to step out into the darkness, the hallway feeling longer and colder than ever before. The neon lights of the veterinary hospital flicker against the midnight sky, a lonely beacon for those in desperate need. The sharp chime of the doorbell rings out as they burst through the entrance, the sound cutting through the oppressive quiet of the waiting room. They approach the reception desk, the sterile smell of the clinic doing little to ease the knots tightening in their stomachs. Every step toward the examination room feels like an eternity, the rhythmic click of their shoes on the linoleum floor marking the passing seconds. Settling into the hard plastic chairs of the waiting area, a heavy, suffocating silence falls over them as they wait for any word on Mimi's condition. Yuan is deep in her own thoughts when an older woman suddenly interrupts the silence, asking if their cat is sick as well. The woman seems eager to talk, perhaps looking for a distraction from her own worries in the middle of the night. She strokes her own pet, a well-groomed cat that seems far healthier than poor Mimi, as she begins to drone about her own baby. The woman begins to boast about how her cat cost over 10,000 yuan, claiming that expensive breeds are simply better behaved. Thankfully, a nurse appears and calls out for Zhan Zhao's parent, causing both girls to jump to their feet in an instant. A clipboard holds the profile for the little orange cat, detailing her weight and the mysterious ingestion of a foreign object. Dr. Duan steps forward, her calm demeanor and sharp eyes providing a much-needed sense of professional authority. Her ID badge gleams under the fluorescent lights as she prepares to deliver the news they've been dreading. Seeing how exhausted the girls are, the doctor kindly suggests they sit down so she can explain the situation more comfortably. The doctor's expression turns grave as she explains that Mimi has swallowed a foreign object that is now lodged deep within her body. Shock ripples through the girls, their breath catching as they stare at the doctor, waiting for the final blow. And the object is a ring, the doctor reveals, her words hanging in the air like a physical weight. She speculates that the cat must have found it at home and mistaken it for a toy, never realizing the danger it posed. The doctor hands over a document detailing the cost breakdown for the emergency surgery required to save Mimi's life. Yuan stares at the numbers on the page, the staggering price of the procedure making her heart sink even further. Overhearing the conversation, the older woman scoffs, suggesting that it's just a stray and that they should simply abandon her and buy a new one. The cruelty of the suggestion leaves the girls momentarily speechless, their their eyes wide with disbelief and growing anger. Suddenly, Yuan slams her hand onto the table, the sharp sound echoing through the room as her patience finally snaps. Her eyes blaze with a fierce, protective fire as she shouts, "I'll never abandon her." She stands there panting, her chest heaving with the intensity of her emotion, refusing to let anyone suggest such a heartless act. A small, prideful smile touches Zhao Ying's lips as she looks at her friend's unwavering loyalty. Reaching out, Zhao Ying takes Yuan's hand in her own, her grip firm and supportive as they face the difficult path ahead together. "We'll sign." The words echo with a desperate finality that cuts through the sterile, tense air of the clinic. A heavy silence follows as hands meet, a physical anchor in a moment of sheer emotional upheaval. The doctor looks up, her expression professional yet softened by the gravity of the situation, stating firmly that only one person is needed for the final consent. In the flurry of the moment, the silver-haired Yuanyou steps forward, her heart racing as she's told exactly where to put her name on the dotted line. She leans over the clipboard with Zhao Ying by her side, her focus narrowing down to the legal lines that stand between her and her pet's safety. With a sharp, shaky breath, she hands the paperwork back, the fate of her beloved Mimi now resting entirely in the medical staff's hands. The doctor offers a small, reassuring smile, her eyes twinkling as she promises the little lady will be just fine. As the medical team whisks the cat away to surgery, the girls can't help but trail behind in a panic, their small forms hurrying through the sterile hallways to keep sight of her for as long as possible. They watch the doors of the operating theater swing shut, the weight of the long wait beginning to settle over them like a cold shroud. Zhao Ying's feet skitter against the tile as she tries to keep up with the frantic pace of the morning's drama. Yuanyou stands for a moment, her gaze fixed on the closed doors with a look of intense, quiet worry etched into her features. The older lady nearby softens her gaze, offering a sincere apology for earlier harsh words that had stung so deeply during the heat of the moment. They settle onto the hard plastic chairs of the waiting room, the silence between them filled only by the distant hum of the clinic's machinery. Yuanyou listens as the woman speaks of family, realizing that true love isn't defined by blood or price tags, but by the sheer fear of loss. The realization hits her like a physical wave, her eyes widening as she processes the unexpected kindness of a stranger. "Are you all right?" The soft question pulls her back to reality, her vision blurring for just a second as she tries to keep her composure. She forces a small, watery laugh, looking over at Zhao Ying, who has been her unwavering rock through this entire ordeal. They sit together in the quiet, the gravity of the ongoing surgery hanging over them, while the clock on the wall ticks mockingly. Yuanyou bites her lip, the guilt of not being more careful with her belongings eating away at her insides as she blames herself for the accident. Her fingers begin to tremble violently, the adrenaline finally fading to leave only raw, unfiltered fear behind. Sensing her distress, Zhao Ying reaches out, firmly placing her hand over Yuanyou's to stop the shaking and ground her. Yuanyou looks up, her breath hitching at the sheer warmth and steadiness radiating from her friend's gaze. Zhao Ying gives her a dazzling, sun-drenched smile that seems to chase away the shadows of the hospital corridor. To distract her, Zhao Ying begins to ramble about all the things they need to buy for Mimi's recovery, imagining a world of special treats and colorful toys. She gestures wildly, her voice rising with a playful excitement as she describes the feline's future life of luxury. Yuanyou can't help it. The tension finally breaks and she bursts into a genuine, heartfelt laugh at the absurdity of it all. Zhao Ying looks absolutely delighted with herself, seeing that she's finally managed to coax a real smile out of her friend. Her face is a picture of pure, unadulterated joy, her eyes sparkling with a mischievous, comforting light. Yuanyou stares at her, a soft blush creeping up her neck as she realizes how lucky she is to have someone like this in her life. Zhao Ying teases her playfully, her laughter filling the hallway and making the sterile environment feel a little more like a home. The conversation turns to their shared responsibility, and Zhao Ying jokes that they are practically the cat's two mothers now. "Then, I guess that makes you the godmother," Yuanyou whispers, the title feeling more significant than a mere joke between friends. Zhao Ying pauses, then starts frantically searching through her pockets as if she's forgotten the most important treasure in the world. With a flourish, she produces a pack of treat sticks, her eyes gleaming with a sense of triumph. She reveals a bag stuffed to the brim with supplies, proving she had been planning for this recovery all along. Yuanyou looks at the overflowing bag, her eyes shimmering with fresh tears as the sheer weight of Zhao Ying's devotion finally sinks into her heart. Tears pooled in her shimmering emerald eyes, threatening to spill over as the weight of the moment finally hit her. Zhao Ying looked on, her own expression a mask of pure shock and concern as she realized just how much pain her friend was hiding. "Mimi will definitely be fine," Zhao Ying promised, her voice trembling slightly as she reached out, while Yuanyou quickly tried to brush away the evidence of her breakdown. Yuanyou turned her head, hiding her face in her sleeve as she sobbed, leaving Zhao Ying frantically searching her pockets for a tissue to offer some comfort. Finally, a soft, fragile smile broke through the silver-haired girl's tears, her expression radiating a newfound sense of relief. Zhao Ying tilted her head in confusion when Yuanyou claimed she was simply happy, but the older girl just reached out and gave her a gentle, reassuring pat on the shoulder. Yuanyou hummed, her gaze softening as she looked at the girl who had stayed by her side through the crisis. She explained that her heart was full because Mimi was no longer alone in this world, finally having a real family to care for her. Zhao Ying felt a flush creep up her neck, awkwardly scratching her head as she realized how deeply she had been integrated into Yuanyu's life. In a moment of quiet intimacy, her fingers brushed against Yuanyu's hand, a spark of electricity dancing between them in the sterile waiting room. Yuanyu's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper as she reminded Zhou Ying of the night she stayed over and confessed the secret of her crush. A distant, longing look settled in Yuanyu's eyes, as if she were reliving that night and every unspoken word that had passed between them. She let out a heavy gulp, her throat tightening as she prepared to say something that could change everything. But the heavy atmosphere was suddenly shattered when the clinic door swung open, and Zhou Ying whipped around to see the vet appearing. "See coming now," Zhou Ying shouted, her face turning bright red as she scrambled to escape the suffocating tension of their conversation. Despite the interruption, a genuine look of excitement washed over her face at the prospect of good news. Yuanyou watched her go, her lips pressed into a thin, thoughtful line as she swallowed back the words she hadn't been able to finish. Then, she let out a soft, melodic laugh, the flowers behind her seeming to bloom just a bit brighter in the wake of her joy. Zhou Ying stood there for a moment, her heart hammering against her ribs as she tried to process the sheer radiance of that smile. The clock on the wall ticked away the minutes, marking the slow passage of time as they waited for the final results. Inside the recovery room, little Mimi lay fast asleep, her tongue poking out adorably as she rested after her successful surgery. The doctor confirmed that the procedure was a complete success, though the little feline would need a bit more time to wake up from the anesthesia. Dr. Duan turned to the pair, giving them professional advice on how to handle the recovery process in the coming days. As they prepared to leave, Yuanyou clutched a small bag containing the ring that had caused all this trouble, a grim reminder of the day's chaos. Zhou Ying reached out to touch the glass of the observation area, her heart aching for the little creature resting inside. "Okay, you're all right now," she whispered softly, her eyes filled with a motherly warmth. She gave the sleeping cat one last lingering look, promising to return for her the very next morning. Dr. Duan flashed a charming, playful grin, admitting that she had a bit of a soft spot for helping such lovely ladies. Zhou Ying didn't miss a beat, playfully pushing Yuanyou toward the door so she could sneakily snag the doctor's contact information for emergencies. She waved a cheerful goodbye to the staff, her energy finally returning now that the worst was over. Zhou Ying trotted back to Yuanyou's side, her steps light and bouncy as they walked out into the cool evening air. Yuanyou, however, seemed to retreat back into herself, her gaze dropping to the floor as a shadow of melancholy returned to her face. They stood outside the clinic in a heavy silence, the weight of the night still pressing down on them both. Suddenly, Zhou Ying's eyes went wide as she fumbled through her pockets, realizing with a jolt of panic that she had forgotten her keys yet again. With nowhere else to go, she clasped her hands together in a desperate plea, begging Yuanyou to take her in for just one more night. Yuanyou couldn't help but chuckle at the girl's antics, her eyes crinkling with genuine affection as she agreed. Watching them walk away together, Dr. Duan smirked to herself, whispering under her breath about the little baby gaze she had just helped. Above them, the night sky was a vast canvas of glittering stars, a silent witness to the growing bond between the two girls. The city lights twinkled in the distance, but the world felt small and quiet as they finally reached the safety of home. Once inside, the atmosphere shifted as Zhou Ying timidly asked if they could share the same bed tonight. The two of them huddled under the covers, the darkness of the room amplifying every rustle of the sheets and every shallow breath. In the quiet of the room, they lay side by side, two small figures seeking warmth and comfort in each other's presence. Zhou Ying tossed and turned, her mind racing too fast for sleep to find her as she stared into the shadows. How can I fall asleep like this? She wondered, her heart thumping so loudly she was sure Yuanyou could hear it. She glanced over at Yuanyou, who appeared to be drifting off, her features softened by the moonlight. Zhou Ying bit her lip, wondering if Yuanyou was secretly as afraid of the silence as she was. She slowly reached out a trembling hand, hovering just inches away from the other girl, craving a connection she couldn't name. Suddenly, Yuanyou's eyes snapped open, her gaze locking onto Zhou Ying's in the dim light. They lay there for a long moment, frozen in the heavy silence, the air between them thick with everything they hadn't said. Yuanyou's hand moved across the blanket, her fingers almost touching Zhou Ying's as the tension reached a breaking point. "Are you still worried about Mimi?" Zhou Ying whispered, her voice barely audible in the stillness of the room. She tried to offer comfort, reminding Yuanyou that stray cats are resilient and always find a way to bounce back. A bittersweet smile touched Yuanyou's lips as she repeated the words, "stray cat," her voice laced with a hidden meaning. "Is it okay if I tell you a secret in return?" she asked, her eyes searching Zhou Ying's for permission to be vulnerable. As their hands finally met and locked together, the constellations above seemed to align, mirroring the deep connection forming in the dark. In that moment, Yuanyou felt like a stray herself, finally finding a place where she truly belonged. She realized that perhaps she was the one who had finally been found. In the quiet moments of her youth, she found solace only in the company of those as lost as herself, whispering secrets to a tiny kitten that was the only soul willing to listen. But the fragile peace of childhood was shattered by words that cut deeper than any blade, as her father's voice boomed through the house, screaming that he never wanted to adopt in the first place. The air grew thick with a suffocating tension as her mother shot back, demanding to know why he had ever agreed to the arrangement if his heart was so cold. Every word was a poison, a final declaration of war between two people who were already divorced, and simply looking for someone to blame for their ruined lives. He didn't even try to hide his disdain, lighting a cigarette with trembling hands as he declared that he had no room in his life for a child who didn't even carry his blood. Her mother's face contorted with a mix of rage and desperation, asking if he truly expected her to just drop a human being back at an orphanage like an unwanted gift. Huddled in the shadows of the hallway, the young girl felt her heart wither as she listened to them trade insults, her father blaming her mother's infidelity while the world she knew crumbled around her. The final blow came with a sneer, as he called her mother a useless woman, mocking the very infertility that had led them to bring a stranger into their home. Years passed, but the feeling of being an intruder never faded, even as she sat diligently at her desk, trying to become invisible while her relatives argued over whose turn it was to foster her for a few miserable months. She kept her head down, the scratch of her pencil against paper drowning out the cold calculations of aunts and uncles who viewed her as nothing more than a financial burden. When she finally gathered the courage to greet them, her voice was a mere whisper, met only by the icy stares of a family that saw her as a ghost. They didn't just want her gone. They wanted every trace of her existence erased, even going so far as to throw her few precious toys into the hallway like trash. The sound of the door slamming shut felt like a sentence, leaving her standing in the hallway with nothing but the ringing in her ears and a hollow ache in her chest. She could hear her cousins through the walls, their voices high and petulant as they complained that they shouldn't have to share their space with a girl who didn't belong. Her uncle's voice was a low rumble of false comfort, promising his own children that her stay was only temporary, a fleeting inconvenience before she was sent away. They had already pulled the necessary strings, arranging for a boarding school that would take her off their hands the moment the doors opened. To them, it was a simple matter of logistics, a way to clean their hands of a girl who was never truly one of them. They sat on their sofa, comfortable in their shared bloodline, while a white kitten watched from the corner, the only other creature in the house who knew what it felt like to be unwanted. As she grew, the hallways of her school became a gauntlet of loneliness, where she walked with her shoulders hunched, trying to ignore the vibrant lives of the students around her. Her only comfort remained the small, furry friend that asked for nothing but a soft touch, a reminder of the gentleness she was rarely shown. She tried to smile in group photos, standing on the edge of the frame while her friends laughed and cheered, but her eyes always gave away the truth of her isolation. By the time she reached adulthood, the weight of the world had settled permanently onto her shoulders, her eyes rimmed with exhaustion as she worked late into the night. Her desk was a mountain of books and papers, a testament to her desperate need to prove her worth through sheer, grinding effort. Sometimes she would pause and watch a mother cat in the garden, nursing her kittens with a fierce, instinctive devotion. She would tell herself that surely no one would truly abandon their own flesh and blood, clinging to a hope she knew was dangerous. Then, the call came, a voice from the orphanage director that made her breath hitch in her throat, claiming they had finally found her birth parents. The director explained that after a cross-check of the records, they were certain they had found the household she belonged to. Tears of pure, unfiltered relief pricked at her eyes as she thanked the director, her voice cracking with a hope she hadn't felt in a decade. She didn't waste a second, sprinting out the door and into the street, begging the voice on the other end to wait for her. A passerby watched her go, commenting on how wonderful it is for someone to finally find where they came from. But as the director continued to speak, the light in her eyes began to dim, replaced by a cold, numbing shock. Her hand trembled as she held the phone to her ear, the world around her slowing down as the horrific truth began to sink in. The director revealed that when she was found as a baby, she wasn't just left alone. She was placed in a box with her own medical records. Those records spoke of a severe case of pneumonia, a life-threatening fever that her biological parents clearly didn't want to deal with. They had looked at her tiny, fragile form and decided she was a broken thing, not worth the cost of saving. They had waited for her to die, and when she didn't, they simply left her at the orphanage and never looked back. The silence that followed was absolute, a vacuum that sucked the air from her lungs as she stood paralyzed on the sidewalk. She looked down at the pavement, the phone still pressed to her ear, feeling like the little girl in the hallway all over again. The city moved on around her, indifferent to the fact that her last shred of hope had just been incinerated. A black cat watched her from a high branch, its eyes reflecting the same ancient sorrow that now filled her soul. She realized then that she would rather be astray forever than see the faces of the people who had calculated the value of her life and found it lacking. Later that evening, the heavy atmosphere began to lift when a familiar, cheerful voice broke through her thoughts, showing her a picture of a cat dressed in a dragonfruit costume. Her friend laughed, declaring that their cat dragonfruit was undoubtedly the most precious creature in the entire world. She looked up, her eyes wide and shimmering with unshed tears as the warmth of the room finally began to reach her frozen heart. The orange tabby pounced across the floor, a blur of chaotic energy that brought a genuine, if shaky, smile to her lips. She stared at her friend, her breath catching as she realized that family wasn't something you were born into, but something you chose to keep. Her friend leaned in, her gaze soft and filled with an intensity that made her heart race with a different kind of heat. A gentle hand reached out, stroking her hair with a tenderness that promised she would never have to be astray again, whispering that she was finally safe. Beneath the heavy, silken sheets, their bare feet remained intertwined, a silent testament to the intimacy shared in the quietest hours of the morning. Tangled limbs and soft fabric created a cocoon of warmth, as if the rest of the world had ceased to exist for these two. Zhan Ying remained lost in a deep, peaceful slumber, blissfully unaware of the eyes watching her. Xianglan leaned in dangerously close, her gaze lingering on the sleeping girl's features with a heavy, unspoken longing. The rhythmic sound of breathing filled the narrow space between them, each inhale and exhale acting as a gentle, invisible brush against their skin. A sharp gulp betrayed the tension beneath Xianglan's calm surface as the proximity became almost too much to bear. In the hazy border where dreams bled into reality, their faces were inches apart, the air thick with a magnetic, terrifying pull. Xianglan moved even closer, drawn like a moth to a flame by the sheer, heartbreaking vulnerability of the woman beside her. In her sleep, Zhan Ying began to fidget, her brow furrowing as a vivid dream took hold of her subconscious. She twisted and turned against the pillows, her lips murmuring a name that should have stayed buried in the dark. Suddenly, her eyes snapped open, her heart hammering against her ribs as the harsh light of reality flooded her senses. Panicked and disoriented, she sat up abruptly, the realization of where she was crashing down on her like a tidal wave. "Shoot, what time is it?" she cried out, her hands fumbling blindly for a phone on the nightstand. Her eyes widened in total disbelief as she stared at the glowing screen, the digital numbers mocking her tardiness. A series of messages from Zhou Yuanyou lit up the display, informing her that brunch was waiting and her leave from work had already been approved. Sitting alone on the edge of the large bed, Zhan Ying clutched the phone to her chest, her mind a whirlwind of confusion and a heat she couldn't quite explain. A faint, bittersweet smile finally touched her lips as she realized just how thoroughly she was being taken care of. Meanwhile, across town at the office, a phone vibrated on a sleek conference table, cutting through the professional silence of the meeting. Xianglan's hand reached out to silence the device, her movements deliberate and icy calm despite the internal chaos she was hiding. The empty plate on the table before her sat as a silent, sterile reminder of a morning she wished hadn't ended. Xianglan's eyes remained sharp and focused on the room, though a hint of something much softer flickered behind those emerald depths. She held her phone tightly for a second too long, her thumb hovering over the glass as she considered sending one more message. The atmosphere in the meeting room grew heavy, with the other staff members exchanging puzzled glances at their boss's uncharacteristic distraction. "Nothing. Let's just get back to the agenda," Xianglan said coolly, setting her device aside with a practiced, sharp finality. Her blonde assistant looked on with a worried expression, sensing that the woman across from her was miles away. "Taking the day off. Why didn't I know anything about Zhan Ying's leave?" The assistant wondered aloud, her confusion evident to everyone at the table. Xianglan didn't offer a single explanation, her face returning to an impenetrable mask of corporate efficiency. She clicked the cap of her marker with a sharp, echoing snap, signaling that any further discussion regarding personnel was officially over. With a graceful, dismissive movement, she pushed a stack of documents across the table to redirect the team's focus. The assistant looked down at the papers, but her eyes were narrowed, clearly stuck on the mystery of Zhan Ying's sudden absence. Xianglan caught the girl staring and offered a look that was both a silent warning and a cold dismissal. The two women sat in a heavy, awkward silence for a moment, the unspoken questions hanging like a thick fog in the air. Xianglan's lips eventually curved into a subtle, knowing smile as she accepted a file, her confidence radiating from her every pore. As expected of a straight girl, she thought to herself, her inner monologue dripping with a mixture of dark amusement and irony. She let out a light, airy laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes, using it as a perfect shield for her true emotions. "Just let me know right away if you still need any more information, Sis," the assistant said, trying to regain some warmth in the conversation. Xianglan tilted her head, her expression shifting to one of playful, dangerous curiosity as she repeated the casual title. A genuine, melodic laugh escaped her this time, the sound bright and entirely unexpected in the sterile office environment. The assistant blushed a deep crimson, realizing she might have overstepped her bounds with such an informal address. "I haven't thanked you properly for the bar incident," the assistant continued, her voice dropping to a more serious, vulnerable tone. She placed a hand over her heart, her eyes shining with a sincerity that momentarily caught Xianglan off guard. Stunned by the sudden, raw display of gratitude, Xianglan paused, her usual composure finally faltering as she stared back. Zhan Ying lay flat on her back, her heart hammering against her ribs as she stared aimlessly at the ceiling of her room. Suddenly, the memory of their proximity flashed through her mind, causing her eyes to snap wide in a moment of pure, unadulterated realization. Unable to contain the fluttery, chaotic energy surging through her veins, she began to roll frantically across the mattress like a high school girl with a crush. "Woohoo!" She squealed into her pillow, letting out all the pent-up excitement that had been building since their last encounter. She buried her face in the sheets, inhaling deeply as if she could still catch a lingering trace of Ms. Zhu's elegant, intoxicating scent. Even though she had been granted a much-needed day off, Zhan Ying found herself completely lost without the structure of the office and the presence of her senior. She let out a frustrated groan, punching the bed in a fit of adorable pique, because a day of rest meant a day without seeing her favorite person. Just as she was about to sink into a pit of boredom, a spark of inspiration lit up her face. The mundane world outside continued its pace, leading her eventually to the local pet hospital where her furry companion was waiting. Stepping inside, Zhan Ying's face lit up with a brilliant smile as she prepared to reunite with her beloved cat. The veterinarian greeted her with a knowing look, telling her that Mimi had been a good girl and would be back with her mom in no time. However, the doctor's next words caught her completely off guard. "Oh? Why isn't your girlfriend here today?" Zhan Ying's entire face turned a shade of crimson that reveled a sunset, her brain short-circuiting at the casual assumption. "Yeah, that beautiful lady from yesterday," the vet continued, completely oblivious to the internal crisis she was causing. Leaning in with a playful, teasing glint in her eyes, the vet asked if they were officially a thing yet. Zhan Ying stammered, her hands shaking as she petted Mimi's head, insisting that they were absolutely, definitely just normal colleagues. The doctor simply chuckled, handing over some paperwork while admitting she had assumed they were the same kind. She clarified with a wink that she was part of the Lily gang herself, a fellow enjoyer of shipping beautiful women together. Zhan Ying's breath hitched, her voice a mere whisper as she asked if it was really okay to be so direct about such feelings. The vet flashed a confident, sharp-toothed grin, asserting that there was absolutely nothing to hide when it came to liking girls. The doctor then burst into a spontaneous, eccentric dance, declaring her absolute love for the maturity and grace of older women. She leaned back in, her gaze piercing Zhan Ying's defenses as she asked point-blank if the girl liked her senior colleague. "Want me to teach you a few tricks?" the vet offered, her voice dripping with mischievous intent. Zhan Ying stood there, completely stunned and rendered speechless by the doctor's bold personality. Her mind raced with 1,000 questions, wondering if her feelings were really that obvious to a total stranger. Before she could spiral further, the vet's professional side suddenly returned as she slid a tin of cat food across the counter. With a business-like grin, she tried to upsell a few cans, mentioning a 20% discount that broke the romantic tension immediately. The sun began dip below the horizon, marking the official end of the long working day for the rest of the city. The towering glass buildings reflected the orange glow of the evening, casting long shadows over the busy streets. Down on the sidewalk, the trees rustled in the cool breeze as the evening rush began in earnest. Yuanyou stepped out of the office building, looking tired but as regal as ever in her professional attire. She paused, her gaze shifting as she sensed someone waiting for her in the twilight. A soft smile touched her lips when she realized Zhan Ying hadn't gone home yet. Zhan Ying approached her, explaining that since she was already out picking up Mimi, she thought she'd stop by. Yuanyou reached out, her fingers brushing against Zhan Ying's in a gesture that sent a jolt of electricity through the younger girl's body. "Since you've picked up the owner, let's go and eat," Zhan Ying suggested, her heart fluttering at the prospect of more time together. They walked side by side, the space between them charged with an unspoken magnetic pull. Yuanyou looked at her with such warmth in her green eyes that Zhan Ying felt like she might melt right there on the pavement. "I'm not doing it just to thank you," Yuanyou whispered, her voice low and intimate. "I just want to have dinner with you." They soon arrived at a cozy restaurant where a steaming, fragrant fish dish was served at the center of the table. But as they looked up, they realized they weren't as alone as they had hoped. The romantic atmosphere evaporated in an instant as they locked eyes with familiar faces already seated nearby. The two girls walk side by side, their bags clutched tightly as they navigate the busy street, discussing their plans with a light-hearted energy. "Ah, so is having dinner together good enough?" the blonde girl asks, her eyes wide with a mix of hope and a sudden, fluttering uncertainty. Her companion leans in, a playful and almost predatory glint sparking in her golden eyes as she asks exactly how she'd like to be thanked. The blonde girl can only stammer in response, her face flushing a deep, unmistakable crimson against a whimsical backdrop of cartoon pups. "I'm just teasing you." "Let's go," the dark-haired beauty laughs, leading the way with a sudden burst of energy. They pick up the pace, one of them rushing ahead to secure a table while calling out to ask what sounds good for their long-awaited meal. "No need for reservations," her friend replies with a nostalgic, knowing smile. "There's a place Zhan Ying and I used to visit often back in high school." The vision of the meal is already clear in their minds, a steaming, aromatic tray of grilled fish, perfectly seasoned and topped with fresh greens. But as they step through the door, their hearts skip a beat to find familiar faces already seated at the very same spot. The silver-haired girl looks up in mild surprise, her calm demeanor contrasting with the shock written all over the newcomers' faces. The blonde girl immediately goes on the offensive, her voice rising as she demands to know why Xiao Ying took the day off without sending so much a text. There's a flurry of movement as everyone scooches over, the legs of the chairs scraping against the blue-tiled floor to accommodate the unexpected party of four. Xiao Ying looks away, her expression sheepish, as she claims a sudden, mild fever was the only reason she stayed home. She tries to play it off as a reaction to the warming weather, her finger tapping her chin in a nervous, telltale gesture. Her companion quickly backs up the story, pressing a hand down as if to physically anchor the lie and confirm the fever was indeed real. The two pairs sit across from each other, a strange electric tension simmering beneath the surface of their casual dinner conversation. The blonde girl tries to break the ice, waving her hand excitedly for a waiter to bring more menus to the table. Suddenly, a phone screen lights up on a lap, a silent, glowing signal that catches the eye in the middle of the chatter. A secret message flashes across the screen, a blunt warning that revealing too many unnecessary details is the fastest way to get caught in a lie. Zhao Ying freezes, her red eyes darting around as she realizes her elaborate fever excuse might be falling apart under scrutiny. Across the table, the silver-haired girl takes a slow, methodical sip of her drink, watching the unfolding drama with a cool, observant gaze. Zhao Ying's face practically explodes in a bright red blush, her pupils shrinking as the weight of her blunder finally hits her. Dum-dum, her friend whispers with a tenderness that makes the air feel heavy, reaching out to boop her nose amidst a flurry of romantic flower petals. The four of them finally settle into the meal, the table crowded with small bowls and the massive centerpiece of grilled fish. One of the girls smirks, her golden eyes sparkling with a secret, mischievous amusement as she observes the chemistry shifting across the table. Chopsticks descend with precision, carefully picking up a choice morsel to place it directly into a waiting bowl. Here, Zhao Ying, didn't you used to love the fish they serve here? She asks, her voice dripping with a sweetness that feels like a challenge. She leans her head on her hand, a dreamy, distant look in her eyes as she purposefully reminisces about their shared high school days. The chopsticks move again, this time dropping a piece of crispy meat into a bowl with a sharp, rhythmic motion that cuts through the conversation. The silver-haired girl comments on the delicious tofu, her expression remaining neutral even as the social tug-of-war intensifies. Another piece of freshly fried meat is offered, a gesture that looks like kindness but feels entirely like a tactical maneuver. Drink some herbal tea to cool down, the silver-haired girl suggests, holding out a can with a hand that is as steady as a rock. The table becomes a chaotic battlefield of hospitality, with everyone offering lotus root and iced jelly all at once, their voices overlapping in a frantic blur. Zhan stares at the mounting chaos, her internal monologue reaching a fever pitch as she tries to decipher the complicated vibes. What is going on? Her inner voice screams, her eyes darting between the two pairs in a state of utter, bewildered shock. A mental notification pings with a "got it" as she desperately tries to piece together the puzzle of who likes whom. The girls continue to laugh and eat in their chibi forms, their simple expressions masking the complex web of jealousy and attraction between them. A pair of chopsticks gently lowers a single noodle into a bowl, a small, quiet moment of focus amidst the surrounding storm of emotions. They all sit together in a row, the silver-haired girl chewing thoughtfully while the others are lost in the high-stakes drama of the dinner. The grilled fish remains in the center, a silent witness to the rising emotional stakes that have nothing to do with the food. An empty plate and a bowl with only the remnants of sauce are all that's left of the feast, though the atmosphere is far from settled. A massive, looming thought bubble appears, posing the question that changes everything. Did I ship the wrong couple? She continues to eat with her cheeks puffed out, her brow furrowed in deep concentration as she completely reevaluates the romantic map of her friends' lives. The steam rises from the hot pot as the group shares a warm, noisy meal together. Leaning in with a mischievous glint, Xianglan asks how Zhan Ying and Xiao Ying first met. The question causes both girls to freeze mid-bite as a sudden, awkward silence hits the table. Zhan Ying breaks the tension, explaining she was the publicity head back in their school days. A nostalgic smile plays on her lips as she recalls the duties that led her to Xiao Ying's classroom. Meanwhile, Xiao Ying can barely meet anyone's gaze, her heart racing as memories flood back. In the quiet halls of the past, Zhan Ying had been leading inspections of the underclassmen's display boards. That was when she first saw her, a young, tearful Xiao Ying struggling to finish a drawing as the sun set. Zhan Ying paused at the door, struck by the raw emotion on the younger girl's face. The official report was harsh, noting every incomplete detail that would cost the class points. Seeing the weight on Xiao Ying's shoulders, Zhan Ying felt a strange tug at her heart. She stood there for a moment, her mind whirring as she watched the frantic girl. Twirling her pen, she made a decision that would change everything. With a sudden thwack, she slammed her notebook down, startling the crying girl. "I'm the leader here," she declared with a laugh, "so just follow my orders." Xiao Ying could only watch in stunned silence as the upperclassmen took charge. Zhan Ying pushed her team along, her playful bossness hiding a secret act of kindness. The hallways echoed with laughter as the group moved on. It sparked a bond forged in those lighthearted moments between classes. "Finish your drawing soon," Zhan Ying called out over her shoulder with a wink. Left alone, Xiao Ying's cheeks burned crimson as she watched the door. Back in the present, Xiao Ying focuses on her bowl, trying to hide her flustered state. She huffs in adorable frustration at the reminder of her past clumsiness. Zhan Ying defends her immediately, her voice soft but firm. Even if she remembers the ditzy girl from before, she sees someone meticulous now. Her gaze lingers on Xiao Ying, making the air feel heavy with unspoken words. "People always change," she whispers, searching Xiao Ying's eyes. The world seems to stop for Xiao Ying as the weight of that statement sinks in. Outside, the city lights twinkle like scattered diamonds against the night sky. The group finally prepares to head their separate ways. They stand at the quiet intersection, the cool air refreshing after the meal. Zhan Ying stands close to Xiao Ying, her presence a constant, comforting warmth. Xianglan beams, sensing the electric chemistry between them. Suddenly, Zhan Ying reaches out and pulls Xianglan into a friendly embrace. She leans to whisper a secret about matchmaking, her expression full of mischief. With final waves and cheerful wishes, the friends depart. Their footsteps rhythmically click against the pavement toward the car. Settled into the intimate confines of the car, the silence feels charged. Zhan Ying turns to her, mentioning the way Xiao Ying looks at someone she truly likes. Xiao Ying's breath hitches, her heart hammering as she processes the implication. The car eventually pulls up to the quiet street outside Zhan Ying's home. They sit there for a moment, the engine humming softly in the dark. Zhao Ying offers a bright, nervous smile as she reaches for the door handle. "I'm sorry about today," Zhan Ying murmurs, her eyes reflecting the dim dashboard light. She admits she might have been a little too selfish where Zhao Ying is concerned. Zhao Ying's eyes go wide, her mind racing at the hidden meaning. Zhan Ying leans closer, her gaze dropping as she asks, "Not going to invite me to your place?" Yuanyou leans in close, her eyes shimmering with a dangerous kind of hope as she asks why Zhao Ying hasn't invited her inside yet. Outside, the heavy clouds finally break, sending a rhythmic pitter-patter of rain against the window pane. As they sit on the couch with the cat nestled between them, Yuanyou sighs, noting that the weather means she won't be able to leave tonight. Her gaze drops as her fingers move to her collar, slowly unbuttoning her shirt while asking if she can stay the night. Zhao Ying's brain completely short-circuits, her face exploding into a frantic, high-pressure nosebleed from the sheer intensity of the moment. She can barely even gasp out her own name as the world spins around her. Gasping for air, she finally manages to regain her senses, her eyes wide with total panic. Yuanyou looks at her with genuine concern, wondering if she's falling ill since her face is so incredibly flushed. Zhao Ying stammers out Yuanyou's name, her voice trembling as she tries to find an escape. She forces herself to look away, whispering that tonight just isn't the right time. Making a wild excuse about not resting well and needing to get home to her cat, Mimi, she prepares to bolt. Before Yuanyou can say another word, Zhao Ying throws the door open and sprints away into the night. Yuanyou is left sitting in the car, staring after her in absolute, stunned silence. Zhao Ying's feet finally hit the floor of her own apartment, her heart drumming against her ribs. She collapses against the back of the door, sliding down to the floor in a heap of tangled nerves. Gripping her phone with shaking hands, she admits to herself that she was seconds away from losing all self-control. She quickly pulls up her messages, sending an excited cat sticker to her confidant. Her friend, Dr. Duan, responds immediately with a string of confused question marks. He demands to know exactly what kind of suggestion she thinks she's following. Zhao Ying types back frantically, explaining that she used the tactics he gave her at the hospital on how to handle a straight girl. She vividly remembers him explaining that approaching with too much purpose would only scare a girl off. His golden rule was that one must retreat first in order to truly advance. In her memory, he looked so supportive as he offered her snacks and encouragement. However, Dr. Wan's actual reaction is a blunt, singular word of shock. Zhao Ying proudly explains that when Yuanyou wanted to come up to her place, she successfully rejected her. A long, agonizing silence follows as Dr. Duan processes the sheer stupidity of her move. Suddenly, his face flashes on her screen as he initiates an emergency video call. He begins screaming at her through the phone, asking why on earth she would back away when the move was so obvious. Zhao Ying can only sob into the camera, begging him to stop yelling at her. Meanwhile, the city lights glow softly under the night sky near a quiet hotel. Xianglan and Lil walk side by side, the air between them thick with unspoken thoughts. Lil looks up in surprise, confused as to why a local like Xianglan would be staying in a hotel instead of at home. Xianglan's smile turns a bit bittersweet as she explains her parents divorced a long time ago. She admits that they've both built new lives and families, and she simply doesn't want to be in their way. Lil's heart aches for her, and she rushes to catch up, her eyes filled with a new kind of understanding. They stop and turn toward one another, the tension between them reaching a breaking point. Xianglan reaches out, her finger playfully poking Lil's cheek to break the heavy mood. The contact is brief, but the chemistry is undeniable as their eyes lock. Lil stammers out a promise to repay her tomorrow, her face heating up. Xianglan laughs softly, wondering why Lil is so obsessed with the idea of thanking her. Lil can only stare at her, her breath catching as she realizes how close they've become. With a mischievous glint in her eye, Xianglan reminds her that the repayment she gave earlier was a kiss. Lil stands completely frozen, her mind reeling from the bold reminder. Amidst a flurry of falling blossoms, Xianglan leans in deep, her presence overwhelming Lil's senses. She places a single finger against Lil's lips, marking the very spot where their secret began. Wait, what does this actually mean? She wonders, her heart hammering against her ribs as the silence stretches between them. Xianglan leans in close, her finger gently grazing Lil's chin in a gesture that feels far too intimate for mere friends. Her breath hitches as she stares into those deep eyes, wondering if her secret desires are finally being mirrored in this moonlight. Inside her mind, a tiny angel and devil battle for control, debating whether to seize the moment or play it safe. The gaze they share is electric, charged with a tension that threatens to snap the fragile thread of their composure. "I'm straight. Kissing isn't a big deal between girls," her inner voice screams, trying to justify the heat rising in her cheeks. The command to just do it echoes in her mind, a singular, pulsing urge to bridge the final gap. She begins to lean forward, the world around them fading into a blur of soft lights and heavy silence. Their lips are mere inches apart, a glance exchanged that says everything they aren't brave enough to voice aloud. But suddenly the spell breaks, and she recoils in a frantic, panicked retreat. "Oh? Looks like there's something on your face," Xianglan says smoothly, handing over a compact to hide the awkwardness of the near miss. Lil fumbles with the mirror, searching her reflection for a flaw that isn't there. She turns away, her heart sinking as she realizes she might have pushed things just a little too far. Trying to recover, Xianglan suggests they head to a nearby bar for a drink to wash away the lingering static. Lil remains silent, the weight of the almost kiss still heavy on her tongue. "You should get some rest too," she finally says, flashing a bright, practiced smile to mask her inner turmoil. "Lil," Xianglan calls out softly, stopping her in her her tracks as she prepares to depart. She pauses, her heart skipping a beat as she slowly turns back to face the woman who haunts her thoughts. "Thanks for walking me home," Xianglan whispers, her eyes soft and unreadable in the moonlight. As she walks away, Lil is left alone with a question that burns. Why didn't they kiss? She trudges down the sidewalk, the cold night air doing nothing to cool the fire in her veins. "You're out of your mind, Wang Lil," she groans, clutching her head in a fit of self-frustration. Suddenly, she stops, realizing she's still holding onto something that doesn't belong to her. She stares at Xianglan's compact mirror, a small token of a moment that almost changed everything. Determined to return it, she heads back toward the elevator hall, her footsteps echoing in the empty space. The hallway is quiet, but the air feels thick with an impending sense of dread. A sudden, firm tap on her shoulder makes her jump, shattering the silence. She turns to find two men blocking her path, their smirks dripping with unwanted familiarity. "Yo, what a coincidence," one sneers. "Where's that girlfriend of yours today?" Lila bristles, her eyes narrowing as she demands to know who they think they are. They laugh, reminding her of the time she took Xianglan away right from under their noses. Before she can react, a rough hand shoots out and grabs her wrist, pinning her in place. "Come on, let us buy you a drink," he growls, his grip tightening with menacing intent. Suddenly, the sound of frantic, rapid footsteps thunders through the hall. Xianglan appears like a whirlwind, her hand reaching out to tear Lil away from her attackers. She steps between Lil and the men, her expression a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. "Get out of here right now," she screams, her voice echoing with a power that demands obedience. She points to the security cameras, declaring that this building is hers, and they have 10 seconds to vanish. The men stammer in shock as the elevator doors open and the building staff rushes to the scene. Security arrives instantly, surrounding the troublemakers and ensuring Lil is unharmed. Realizing they've picked the wrong fight, the men beat a hasty retreat, mumbling excuses as they flee. Lil watches them go, her body still trembling from the sudden rush of adrenaline and fear. "Why are you back?" she asks, her voice barely a whisper as she looks up at her savior. Xianglan's eyes are filled with a fierce protectiveness that leaves Lil breathless. "I'm not letting you stay here alone after this," Xianglan states firmly, leaving no room for argument. "Come stay at my place tonight," she insists, and Lil finds herself unable to say no to the woman who just saved her. "Come in, sis." The invitation hangs in the cool night air as the city lights twinkle behind them. Xianglan stands awkwardly with her luggage, while Xiao Sibi's herself finding a pair of spare slippers for her new roommate. "Just treat it as my repayment to you for rescuing me last time, okay?" Xiao Si chirps, her voice full of genuine gratitude. Before Xianglan can even protest, she's being pulled toward the kitchen with a playful tug. A soft smile tugs at Xianglan's lips as she asks if she can take a quick peek at the fridge to see what they have for dinner. She swings the door open only to find a desolate wasteland of empty shelves and a few lonely bottles. Xiao Si lets out an embarrassed squeak, insisting that she at least manages to make noodles for herself sometimes. Xianglan reaches in, her fingers brushing against a cool egg as a plan begins to form. "Then I'll just use whatever is available," she says, her eyes sparkling with a sudden domestic warmth. She holds the ingredients like precious treasures, ready to turn this empty kitchen into a home. With practiced ease, she cracks the eggs into a bowl, the sound sharp in the quiet apartment. She pours in a splash of milk, whisking the mixture until it's perfectly smooth. The kitchen is soon filled with the mouth-watering sound of sizzling as the eggs hit the hot pan. In no time at all, a plate of golden, steaming tamagoyaki is presented, looking like a professional work of art. "Try it," Xianglan urges, her apron tied tight as she waits for the verdict. Xiao Si takes a bite and her eyes go wide, practically shouting that it's super delicious. Xianglan takes the opportunity to suggest a compromise: she'll cook the meals to cover her share of the rent. "I'm looking forward to working with you these next few months," she says, a sense of belonging finally settling over her. Xiao Si can only stare back, her heart racing as she looks at the kind girl who just moved in. The next morning, the sun rises over the towering glass skyscrapers of the business district. Xianglan is feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders, having stayed awake until the early hours thinking about her new life. She feels absolutely awful, her steps heavy as she trudges toward the elevator bank at work. Suddenly, a warm hand brushes against her hair, sending a jolt of electricity through her tired body. "Ms. Zhou," she stammers, turning to find the elegant silver-haired woman standing right there in the elevator. The doors close, and Ms. Zhou's hand moves with a dangerous grace. She gently lifts Xianglan's chin, her thumb tracing the dark shadows under her eyes with a worried frown. "Do you want to come to my office during lunch break?" she whispers, her voice low and intimate. "There's a small couch for you to take a nap." Xianglan looks up into those mesmerizing eyes, her breath hitching at the sheer proximity. In a moment of pure exhaustion and hidden longing, she lets her head fall forward, leaning against Ms. Zhou's shoulder. "I'm asleep now," she murmurs, the scent of the older woman's perfume acting like a drug. The elevator dings as it reaches the 16th floor, breaking the spell of their private moment. Xianglan reluctantly pulls away, while Ms. Zhou offers a soft, knowing smile. "Let's work first," Ms. Zhou says, shifting back into her professional persona as she mentions an important meeting. They walk out into the hallway, the distance between them returning to a professional gap. But Xianglan can't help but gaze at her back, her heart aching with a secret she can't share. She recalls the words of a friend, a doctor named Duan Haki, who gave her tips on how to handle a straight girl. She sighs to herself, a single thought echoing in her mind. If only she weren't straight, she thinks, her eyes lingering on the woman who seems so close yet so far. Inside the conference room, Ms. Zhou stands at the head of the table, commanding the attention of the entire room. The team sits in rapt silence, waiting for the announcement from their department head. She announces that since they've hit their goals, she's taking the whole department out for a team-building trip. She turns her gaze directly to Xiang Lan, warmly inviting her to join the group as well. Xiang Lan hesitates, pointing out that she isn't technically part of the company, her voice trembling slightly. The room erupts in excitement as the rest of the team cheers for the upcoming getaway. The atmosphere is electric with anticipation as everyone starts imagining the fun ahead. And destination for this little retreat: the relaxing, steamy waters of the hot springs. The busy city hums with the promise of a getaway as thoughts of steaming hot springs fill the air. Zhou Ying practically skips out of the office, her lunch break transformed into a countdown for their upcoming trip. Ms. Zhou catches her mid-stride, a playful smirk dancing on her lips as she asks if the girl is really that excited. Zhou Ying's face erupts into a crimson flare as she imagines the elegant Ms. Zhou in a swimsuit, her heart hammering against her ribs. To hide her frantic blushing, she quickly agrees to Ms. Zhou's suggestion of taking a nap on the office couch. She tries to settle in, but the presence of the woman she admires makes every nerve-ending tingle. How could I possibly sleep in this situation? She wonders, her eyes wide and staring at the ceiling. Ms. Zhao looks up from her monitor, teasingly warning her that there won't be another chance to rest later. Zhao Ying lets out a small squeak of panic, her body stiffening, as she feels Ms. Zhu's gaze linger. She slams her eyes shut instantly, desperate to appear deep in slumber. From across the room, Ms. Zhao watches the girl's poorly acted performance with a gaze that softens into something far more tender. Eventually, the rhythm of the quiet office lulls Zhao Ying into a genuine, peaceful sleep. Ms. Zhu quietly closes her work, the click of the latch sounding like a signal in the heavy silence. She stands and looks over at the sleeping girl, her expression unreadable but filled with a quiet intensity. Stepping lightly across the carpet, she carries a soft blanket like a precious treasure. With movements as gentle as a summer breeze, she leans over to cover Xiao Ying, careful not to wake her. Ms. Zhao squats down beside the couch, bringing her face inches away from the sleeping girl. She studies the soft curve of Xiao Ying's cheek, the tension in her own shoulders finally melting away. Her green eyes shimmer with a hidden longing, a silent confession written the way she lingers. Slowly, she reaches out, her fingers trembling slightly as they graze the skin of Xiao Ying's neck. The scene shifts as the long-awaited team-building day finally arrives under a bright, clear sky. Majestic mountains loom in the distance, painted in shades of deep teal and morning mist. A tour bus wins its way through the lush, green countryside, carrying the excited office staff. As they pull up to their destination, the group piles out, luggage in hand and spirits high. The sun glints off the roof of a stunning, modern villa nestled in the hills. We're finally here! The staff cheers, taking in the fresh mountain air. Inside, the villa is even more luxurious than they imagined, with a view that takes their breath away. Ms. Zhao gathers everyone, explaining that there are several types of rooms available for the night. Chaos immediately erupts as Xiao Yang and a blonde colleague begin bickering over who gets the best view. Ms. Zhou laughs, proposing a challenge, a race to the top of the mountain to decide the room assignments. The two rivals glare at each other, their competitive fire stoked to a roaring blaze. Xiao Ying's motivation is secret and singular. If she wins, she might just get to share a room with Ms. Zhu. Go, go, go! They scream, sprinting toward the trailhead with everything they've got. But half an hour into the steep climb, the initial adrenaline begins to fade into heavy panting. The blonde girl collapses onto the stone steps, her face pale as she gasps that she can't go another step. She sits there, defeated, as the rest of the group stops to check on her. Another coworker kindly offers to stay behind and walk at a slower pace. Xiao Yang, however, refuses to stop, her eyes fixed on the path ahead as Ms. Zhu follows close behind. Ms. Zhou watches her determined pace, asking if she truly wants that specific room so badly. Xiao Ying blushes, unable to meet her eyes as she mumbles a quiet The memory of Ms. Zhu's gentle touch in the office flashes through her mind, fueling her resolve. I can do it, she shouts, pushing her body to its absolute limit for one final sprint. But disaster strikes in a heartbeat. A sickening crack echoes through the trees as her foot hits a loose stone. Down below, the resting girls jump at the sound, looking up the trail with wide, worried eyes. The sound of heavy breathing fills the air as the group pushes themselves up the steep, rocky path. At the very top, the first tier of hikers stands triumphant, looking down at the path they've conquered. Far below, the second and third tiers are still struggling, their small figures a testament to the grueling climb. Xiao Li gasps for air, her face flushed from the exertion as she keeps her eyes locked on the goal. She looks back at the boys trailing behind, a playful smirk dancing on her lips as she mocks their lack of stamina. The guys are practically crawling, looking as if they might collapse at any moment. Finally, they find a flat spot to rest, their bodies slumping against the cool earth in total defeat. One of them reaches into a bag, realizing with a frown that their supplies are dwindling fast. Xiao Li takes charge, handing over a bottle of water to the parched Xiao Li. A guy offers her a bright, exhausted smile, promising she can have the rest of his drink once he's finished. A weary thank you escapes someone's lips as they try to regain their strength. Xiao Li looks down the trail, suggesting they wait for the rest of the group to catch up. But Lil isn't having it, her competitive spirit flaring, despite the obvious pain she's in. A close-up reveals the truth Lil is trying to hide. Her ankle has swollen into a nasty, red bruise. Xiao Li's expression hardens as she insists they turn back immediately. Lil stubbornly tries to pull up her sock, desperate to hide the injury from her friend's prying eyes. "I'm all right," she shouts, though her voice trembles with the effort of standing. Xiaoli just stares at her, her gaze heavy with a mixture of worry and frustration. In a moment of rare honesty, Lila's tough facade crumbles as she admits just how much it hurts. Xiaoli won't take no for an answer, her voice firm as she commands them to start the descent. She reaches out, her hand gripping Lila's arm with a protective strength. As Lila leans her weight against Xiaoli, the sudden proximity makes her heart race. She looks away, a deep blush creeping up her neck as she tries to process the strange tension between them. Xiaoli pauses, a sudden thought striking her as she looks at her friend. Their eyes meet for a heartbeat, and the world seems to go quiet around them. Overwhelmed by the intensity of the moment, Lila suddenly tries to bolt away. But Xiaoli is faster, her fingers snapping shut around Lila's wrist to keep her from falling. "I have a way for you to get first place," Xiaoli whispers, a mischievous glint in her eyes. Lil looks up, her mouth hanging open in pure shock of suggestion. Xiaoli's smile grows wider as she asks if Lil wants to experience the true power of money. Shimmering gold coins seem to explode in the background as Xiaoli reveals her secret plan. The others can only watch in confusion as the two girls suddenly veer off the main path. High above the trees, a red cable car glides silently toward the mountain peak. The rest of the hiking group stops dead in their tracks, their faces twisted in disbelief. They squint through the glass, spotting Xiaoli and Lil sitting comfortably as they soar past the hikers. "Doesn't this count as cheating?" Leela asks, though she looks far too comfortable to care. She leans her head against the glass, her eyes wide, as she takes in the breathtaking view from above. Xiaoli smiles softly, agreeing that the world looks much better when you aren't struggling to breathe. Meanwhile, back on the ground, the rest of the group can only sigh in exhaustion as they settle in for a long, long rest. After taking a moment to catch her breath, she declares that she had more than enough rest and is ready to keep pushing forward. Adjusting her sun hat to shield her eyes from the dappled light, she prepares herself for the steep climb ahead. Xian trots up the stone steps with a frantic energy, her voice laced with genuine worry as she apologizes for making them fall behind schedule. Zhan Ying follows at a more measured pace, her brow furrowed as she wonders exactly what they could possibly be late for in the middle of a mountain. Suddenly, a small, intricately woven grasshopper is thrust into her line of sight, appearing out of nowhere. Zhan Ying lets out a startled, high-pitched shriek, her face contorting in a hilarious display of pure, unadulterated terror at the unexpected green visitor. But as she looks closer, her fear melts away into wide-eyed fascination at the delicate craftsmanship of the grass toy. Xian beams at her with a radiant smile, explaining that while the destination is important, the small wonders they find along the way are what truly make the trip special. The world around them seems to glow with a magical aura, the sunlight catching on a cascade of purple wisteria. Lush hydrangeas and winding ivy cling to the stone walls of a nearby balcony, offering a breathtaking view even before they reach the summit. A crystal-clear creek tumbles over mossy rocks further down the path, its gentle babbling providing a soothing melody to their hike. Zhan Ying watches the water with a soft, mesmerized expression, her golden eyes reflecting the absolute peace of the mountain. They eventually reach a crossroads where a wooden signpost offers a choice between a winding path and the final trek to the mountain top. High above the dense forest canopy, the scene shifts to the steel cables of a mountain transport system. A red gondola glides effortlessly through the air, looking like a tiny speck against the vast, sun-drenched landscape. Inside the cabin, the two girls sit close together, watching the trees fall away beneath them as they soar toward the clouds. Zhan Ying's face lights up with pure, infectious joy as she announces that they've finally reached the very top. She turns to Yuanyou with an excited grin, her earlier exhaustion completely forgotten in the thrill of the moment. Yuanyou watches her with a tender, knowing gaze, teasingly asking if she's still determined to be the one in first place. Zhan Ying offers a sheepish, flustered smile, her cheeks dusting with a faint pink hue under the weight of Yuanyou's warm attention. As the cable car comes to a smooth halt, Zhan Ying prepares to make her grand exit. With a triumphant shout, she bounds out of the gondola, her feet hitting the pavement with the force of a girl who has just conquered the world. However, her bravado falters as she looks at Yuanyou, admitting that she feels a bit guilty about taking the best room for herself after everything. Yuanyou simply smiles and suggests a surprising compromise that they should just split the right to choose the room together. Zhan Ying is caught completely off guard, her eyes widening as she tries to process the intimate nature of the suggestion. The mountain breeze catches her hair as she stands frozen, her heart skipping a beat at the soft, undeniable affection in Yuanyou's eyes. A heavy, charged silence falls between them, the rest of the world fading into a blur of green and white. Zhan Ying finally breaks the quiet, her voice a bit too high as she desperately asks what else there could possibly be to discuss. She starts rambling about logical explanations, wondering if Yuanyou is just being nice because they work in the same department. She begins counting off the mundane possibilities on her fingers, her mind racing to find any excuse that doesn't involve her own racing heart. Yuanyou doesn't move, her intense, emerald green stare leaving Zhan Ying feeling completely exposed. Then, with a gentle smile that seems to stop time itself, Yuanyou leans in and whispers the words that shatter Zhan Ying's defenses. "Because I like you." Zhan Ying's heart begins to hammer against her ribs, the sound echoing in her ears like a drum. She lets out a nervous, panicked laugh, her entire face turning a brilliant shade of crimson, as she tries to play off the confession as a joke. "It's a trap!" she screams internally, her mind spiraling as she realizes she's fallen for the most dangerous trap of all, a straight girl's casual affection. Without a single word of reply, she spins on her heel and bolts toward the exit in a blur of motion. Her footsteps tap rapidly against the stone as she flees the scene, her heart still thumping wildly in her chest. Yuanyou is left standing alone at the summit, her brow furrowed in genuine bewilderment as she watches her companion disappear into the distance.